Luigi Vendittelli is a lifelong UFO investigator, researcher, and a global citizen stepping into Total Disclosure Studio today. Born in Montreal in 1975, Luigi became the youngest member of MUFON back in 1987. He went on to serve as National Director for Canada, leading one of the organization's most active regions. From 2013 to 2017, he dove deep into the wave of black triangular UFOs reported across Ontario and Quebec, conducting hands-on field investigations. He's been directly involved in ufology's most compelling cases. The Ariel School encounter in Zimbabwe, 1994, working closely with witness Emily Trim, and contributing to Randall Nickerson's acclaimed documentary, The Ariel Phenomena. Luigi also spent 2 years studying the abduction phenomena under the legendary Dr. David Jacobs. Beyond the field, Luigi is a seasoned brand merchandiser, president of Motivo, and an up-and-coming filmmaker who just got started in the space, which led him to his latest project, S for the Bob Lazar story. Gear up and get ready for a high-octane conversation packed with first-hand investigative stories, insights into the Ariel School children, the abduction enigma, Black Triangle craft, and of course, the story of Bob Lazar, the original UFO whistleblower. This is Total Disclosure. Today's guest, Luigi. How are we doing
Tyler,
today?
it's a pleasure.
It is honestly.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you here.
To
be here.
This episode, I think we talked, it was like a little bit before the movie came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I know you're busy. I can only imagine what you're about to do, but don't forget me. And you didn't. So I really want to, first off, just say thank you for that. Because I know you probably have your pick of what shows you can appear on right now.
Yeah,
and
this is a great one. So this is a great place to have this conversation.
You became the youngest person in MUFON?
Yeah.
So how long have you been in this field?
Since 87.
God. So
yeah.
How old were you when you first applied to MUFON? Because you have to...
Well, it was 1987. I got interested in this field I was 9, so 1984. That's when I got interested in it. And because of my granddad. But after that, I tried to, because my granddad saw flying saucer, so it got me really interested in it. And I thought, let me find out what that was all about. And it basically turned me into a geek at hyper speed. And I was looking for everything I could find that would possibly talk about UFOs, flying saucers, maybe aliens, because we didn't know what it was. And at the time in the 80s, back in Montreal, all I could find was astronomy books. There wasn't anything else. So I thought by me reading a lot about astronomy, I was going to find out about flying saucers, which is completely, the right way of learning about astronomy, because you think you're going to get somewhere and you're learning all this really interesting stuff, but never really finding out anything about flying saucers. So I became well versed in astronomy at a young age, and then found out one day when I went to Plattsburgh, New York with my mom, grandmother, and my sister, in a bookstore, they had something about MUFON, and I finally found something about UFOs.
UFOs.
And so I remember I think what I bought was a magazine, if I remember, because I still have a stack of magazines from back then. And in the magazine, there was a way to apply to be a member of MUFON. It was like back then, there'd be these cards in magazines and stuff. So I applied, and they sent, I think it was like, I had to fill up a whole bunch of stuff, which I did, sent it off. I believe they were in Texas, if I'm not wrong, if my memory serves me right. My mom was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like being a member of a group or something." And then they sent me my original membership card from it was stamped in 1988. So I know that I found out about it late 87. Must have done that in 88. Sent the application in. They sent me my card, and it said, official member, and it said like specialty astronomy because I wrote that on the application, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to get my I gotta
be an
intimidated
expert.
me.
Yeah.
I thought, oh shit, I have a job now. Again, I'm still a kid, and that basically started me off. And Walt Andrus, the guy who was running MUFON internationally, wrote a letter with that saying, you're the youngest member of MUFON in the world. So I found out because they wrote me that. That was it. Yeah.
So 12 years old? That must have been a crazy thing to get.
Well, I was super hungry for UFO material. I couldn't find anything because there was never anything that I could, especially Montreal. Montreal really was very, very, I went into bookstores and I went into libraries and all that. And it wasn't First of all, it's really important. If you had anything about UFOs back then in a library, it was not pictures. So let's also consider I was a kid. And as a kid, I'm wanting to learn, but I want to see. So anytime I would see a book that was just text, I was like, I have to read all that now. So I'm looking for pictures. I'm looking for some validation in photography or at least drawings, right? So MUFON had that.
They did?
And so that was the initial, I'm seeing pictures, I'm seeing drawings, I'm seeing people design, explaining what they saw. And that was like 100% got me hooked. And then I started reading a lot on the subject after that, and then I pretty much read every possible book I could find about it.
And obviously you didn't just kind of one day go, I want to learn about UFOs.
No.
Your grandfather was a huge part of your life.
Yeah, my grandfather was like a second dad to me. His name was Antonio Martino, and he basically, in Montreal, 1965, saw a flying saucer. He said clearly it was a flying saucer. It flew over him. He was with a friend of his on the balcony, and it was moving very quickly. It had flames coming out of it, he said. Okay?
That's such a interesting
And he
detail.
said it was clearly a round silver disc on fire. Or what appeared to be flames coming off the edges.
Fire in the sky.
Yeah, it's weird. And he said it was moving very fast from the one horizon. They ran in. My mom was a kid at the time, and she was on the ground playing with her sister, and she remembers them running in screaming disco volante, like flying saucer. And they basically went to the other side of the apartment. They looked at the horizon, and it was already on the other side of the horizon. So that's something that moves real fast. Now, he was a very old school, very basically one of the strictest but most kindest person I knew in my life. He was always very strict in me studying, me doing the right things, dressing right, handling myself correctly in front of people.
Pull this thing right in.
Yeah, and, handling himself real correctly with people, and making sure that I don't ever say bad words, and wash your hands all the time, whenever you go to eat. And
so he's an old school,
very old school,
Italian.
and also would bring me to church all the time. Back when I was a kid, I'd go to the Vatican all the time with him because we spent our summers in Rome, and so he was my grandfather was like, I was with him all the time, and my church on Sundays in Rome was the Vatican, so we would go there together. He's very much, always have to believe in God. So I kind of grew up with that. But regardless of all his traditional beliefs and all that, he said, I saw a flying saucer. So to me, that was like, why would he say that? Why would this man who is completely not into flying saucers say he saw a flying saucer? Everybody would laugh every time he'd talk about it. I always saw the expression on his face of kind of disappointment. Everybody would always be like giggling. Oh, you saw a flying saucer? Like it's ridiculous. And he was not amused with their,
So it's almost like he's telling the story and he just wants one person to be like,
yeah,
I believe you.
Well, I think there were some people that in the family that did believe him, but it was not serious. So it's like, oh, I believe you, but it's crazy to think that. So you have to think this is very, early 80s. And there is no doubt that at that time, even if you remotely accepted this as reality, you were also very conscious of what other people around are going to think of you saying it. So you kind of laugh it off anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Oh, I believe it. But it's ridiculous. Why? Because you don't want other people to think you're drinking the Kool-Aid, which is what it was considered at the time. So that really made me wonder if he absolutely believes he saw a flying saucer, then what did he see? Because
fair question.
That was my whole thing. That's what got me started. I was like, there's no way he's lying. So what? I mean, I remember thinking, are there round airplanes? Was there anything else that was round? That I was looking for stuff.
There's nothing.
There's
round.
nothing round. You know what I mean? There's nothing round. So it's like, what did he see? I want to know what he saw, and that basically started.
Just I don't want to harp too long on it, but I think it's important. Tell me exactly what he said he saw. Describe the craft.
Basically he was on the balcony with his friend. His friend's name was Corrado Zenga, which was a professional soccer player in Italy. They were friends. Corrado stayed in Montreal. Stayed in Italy. My family moved to Montreal. They were on the balcony smoking a cigarette. It was 1965. Everybody smoked cigarettes in 1965. In Italy, everybody smoked until the 2000. Like, smoking was a very, very common thing back then. And basically, smoking a cigarette outside. My grandmother, my aunt, and my mom were indoors, and Corrado's wife was inside the apartment. They were on Chabanel and Tallhurst. Anybody who's in Montreal knows what I'm talking about. And there were no buildings on Chabanel at the time. Again, for Montrealers, you know what I'm talking about. And it was just open fields. And he said a very bright orange light coming very fast from the horizon. And he's like, and he was very familiar. He was in the military, in the Italian military. He was captured in, I believe, 1942. As a prisoner with the I think 42 or 43 got captured by the Germans, was brought to Hanover, Germany in a concentration camp, which was a sugar mill, and worked hard labor there for 2 years, almost died. He had malaria, lost weight and whatever, but was very familiar with military aircraft and military equipment. And he immediately realized how fast that thing was coming off the horizon and thought, that's not a plane. Because he knew that nothing moves that fast. It was really coming in fast, he said. So they stood up, and he motioned to his friend, look there. And he says by the time they stood up, it was almost already above them. And he says it was a clear, he says you could not have, it wasn't clear, couldn't get it clearer than that. A very shiny silver disc with flames coming off of it, like fire, moving silently, super fast. So they run into the apartment to go to the other side because it had flown over them. And he's screaming, disco volante, because it means flying saucer. Go to the other window, and it's already on the other horizon. Now, what was that? What was that silver disc with flames? I used to ask him all the time. I remember at a certain point, I asked him, do you think it could have been a plane? Like, I was so inquisitive, and he was always. I remember him always looking around before answering me because he didn't want to appear like the grandfather who's trying to coerce his grandson into believing ridiculous things. So that's how old school he was.
yeah.
As much as he knew what he saw, he didn't want to appear to be the irresponsible grandfather who's trying to make his grandson believe in flying saucers.
Well, he did the job.
Oh, he fucking certainly did. Yeah. So that was a big deal. And I think that for me, that was so real. I'll never forget how real that was to me. And I thought, what did he see then? I mean, I'm still asking that question.
Because why I bring it up is I have this thing about people. No, I'm not saying, because we'll get to that question, but for people who enter this subject without a sighting, with faith in someone else's,
Right.
like they trust that person that much.
Religion.
Religion. Right?
It's religion. You just said it right. Like, and it's interesting because it's religion. I mean, nobody met Jesus, and yet everybody's following. So many people follow that. Nobody's met Allah, yet everybody's following that. So it's almost like a faith-based thing because I believed in my grandfather who says he saw that.
Right.
It's the same thing. I mean, I
He was
never
your
saw
prophet.
it. I didn't see it. So for me, it was like, but I believe him. I don't.
And that was enough.
To me, that was not just enough. It was like anybody who's Italian listening to this, who grew up in the 80s with like real Italian grandparents that are old school, knows what I'm talking about. He was old school Italian. They
Fresh
were
off
not
the boat,
talking. They were not talking about flying saucers.
No,
they
had a lot more to worry about. So, fast forwarding a little bit, you go from what is self-described as, and again, you said this, a teenage UFO nerd in Montreal,
big time,
to national director,
right,
for Canada.
Canada, yeah,
for the whole
country, yeah,
the whole country,
yeah.
And what do you think the biggest shift that you've seen in the UFO community from the 80s and 90s to today is?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, the shift is gigantic. I think that what I'm so pleased, there's two things that I find really cool. One is, as much as the mainstream media is full of shit, they're still talking about it, which is a great thing because you couldn't get the mainstream media to say anything back then about flying saucers unless they played a little bit of the Twilight Zone music and would giggle. They still giggle, by the way. There's still some people in mainstream that are giggling, but it's gotten to the point where they're talking about it, which is great.
It is.
The second thing I find most interesting is that it's become cool in the sense where it's no longer taboo to talk about this topic. It's a cool topic. Now that means you have more interesting people associating themselves into the conversation, which is something we didn't have before. I've been saying this since the 1990s, and I'll keep saying it. Although I have experience in this since the late 1980s, I myself and other, let's call them investigators or investigative journalists or whatever you want to call these people, they should not be the ones doing this. We should not be the ones doing this. This is completely, utterly retarded that we're the ones investigating UFOs. I should not be on podcasts talking about it. It should be people that are in academia, in the scientific community. It should be government officials that are highly have big careers, not just a politician who got elected a year ago and is going to be out of office 2 years later. I'm talking about career military personnel. Those are the people that should be looking into this on a public stage. Not people like me, not people like who we're seeing, because who cares? We have absolutely good data, but who the hell am I? I mean, let's face it. Nobody's going to take me seriously if I stand up and say anything else other than all my experience in this field. My only claim to fame is yeah, I've looked into it for almost 40 years. So yeah, I have the experience, but I don't have accreditation. I don't have scientific credentials. I don't have government credentials. I don't have anything that would make somebody else who has no clue what this is all about look at a guy like me. Why? The first thing they're going to do is, what does he do?
Right.
Oh, he's a business person. Why would I listen to a business person?
Right.
Oh, he's a filmmaker. Okay. It's like even Steven Spielberg, who's about to launch his big film Disclosure Day,
yeah.
There's still people saying, why would we even believe that disclosure is coming? Why? Because Steven Spielberg said that? Who's Steven Spielberg? Right. He's a filmmaker. He's a guy who creates fiction.
Fake movie.
Right. So think about that. And it's like, for me, I've always said it. The more this topic comes into, so this is where I'm saying it's good, because in a way we're expanding that pool of people that are able to talk about it and openly want to talk about it. Hopefully we gather more academics and scientific people that are not scared to talk about it.
Okay, what do you, and this is kind of fast forwarding, so I apologize, but Neil deGrasse Tyson just flipped.
He didn't flip.
Okay.
He didn't flip.
But I hate to ask, but do you mean guys like him?
No, at all. Not at all.
Because he
first
made
of all,
a
he's
joke of this.
First of all, he's a celebrity. He's not a
scientist.
He's not a
right?
scientist. Come on.
As much as Bill Nye is.
Bill Nye is not a scientist. Like, this is retarded. Every time we hear something like that, it's ridiculous. It's like, these are not scientists. These are entertainers that talk about science. I am talking about the quiet, real, humble, real people in science that are always asked to keep their mouth shut about anything that is controversial, because they might not get the grant, they might not get the promotion, they might not get onto the programs that they want to get. And I'm not saying secret programs, I'm talking about anything. So we have a world full of absolutely brilliant people, and the academic and scientific community still stigmatizes this topic, still doesn't want them to talk about it, still doesn't want them to question the narrative that it's all untrue. They always, like Neil deGrasse Tyson or anybody else, going, well, show me. What arrogance? Show me.
Right.
Well, it's like you're the one who's been looking for it's like me talking to him going, if you're the astronomer I should be talking to, and you're telling me that the universe is possibly teeming with life, well, then show me.
Yeah.
That's just an asshole way of approaching it.
Well, one of the things I find super disingenuous about Neil is he got famous talking about black holes, which were theoretical.
Right.
Right? No one had ever seen one or got one on camera. Mm-hmm. And he put his life and faith into saying that, no, these are there. These are there. Like, it checks out. Like, there are black holes. And he was adamant that they were there. And he was operating without any proof that they actually existed. And then we did get a photo. But then for him to be so arrogant in the UFO topic, it just made me go, oh, you're just towing the company line.
Of course, because also, if you think about, if science is about the discovery of the unknown. Forget aliens. We probably have millions of things to discover right here on Earth still. I mean, it's not like we figured everything out. Mm-hmm. We're still learning. Every day we are learning. So for me, the academic community, or the scientific community it's kind of a very slippery slide for anybody who's invested so many years studying, getting a degree, so many years mingling with the people that would potentially hire them for something. It becomes a very select group of people. There's a way of talking, mm-hmm. a way of expressing yourself. If you go to one of their one of their conventions, and you're the one guy at the bar going like, you really think that the pyramids were built by humans? Immediately, there's a huge group in there that's going to go like, oh, you're one of those.
You're one of those.
Oh, you're one of those. Or even though they know that the universe is teeming with life, say, don't you think aliens already came here? He's one of those. Because you're going too fast, too far for them. In a way, they are right to react that way, because the people that they work under don't want them to go there. So they're kind of stuck in their box. Now, that's a very important thing. They're stuck in their box, even though at home secretly they'll watch maybe my movie or some other, The Age of Disclosure or some other great movie like The Phenomenon or Ariel Phenomenon or whatever is out there. They're not going to tell their colleagues. They're going to maybe tell somebody at home, hey, did you see? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But who knows? And they kind of make themselves, there's a mantra. I was like, no, I'm not going to make this part of my life because that's going to put me on a slippery slope and I could lose my job.
Right.
And although, there's a lot of people that say, no, that stigma's going away. It's going away so slowly. So it's still stigma. There's still danger talking about this. So that's why I say it shouldn't be guys like me, because if somebody had done the research for 40 years, well, they would have at least been able to educate other colleagues with proper talks or at conventions or on meetings or something where they would be, or teaching it in university, saying, look, there are unknowns out there. There's government programs that are researching unknowns out there. We're not saying they're aliens, but this is absolutely very interesting. We can confirm that these are things that are not making any sense. But that's not happening.
Yeah.
That is not happening.
You're absolutely right.
So that's why it's like,
it's concerning.
It's a very, so we're not going into a disclosure era. We're getting into an era where the conversation of disclosure has just become a little bit more comfortable. That's it. We're not getting disclosure. We're just talking about it.
You know what? I honestly respect you for saying that, because you could come on here and just be like, I just made a Bob Lazar movie. We're getting disclosure.
No.
Right? And everyone will march to your tune to that
I've
point.
had people write me, and I love everyone. I'm so thankful for everyone who writes about the film and about how we've done a great job.
Such a good job.
And they're saying, this is kind of part of disclosure. I'm happy this makes them feel that way, but I'm also cautioning them, being careful. I didn't do this because I wanted this to be disclosure. I did this because I wanted to create historical document. I wanted to document something that was accurate. I wanted to correct all the wrong information about it, and I wanted to put it in a digestible format. That was my goal. Whether the government or the scientific community or Neil deGrasse Tyson goes, this is disclosure, that's not what I tried to do. If they think that, whatever, it's not what I intended to do. What I intended to do was, look, these are things that happened. This is what happened. This is exactly how it was explained. This is what it looked like. Believe it or not, that's the story. That's it. So, it's if somebody makes a film about Jesus Christ or about Allah, they're making a film trying to give somebody who's honest and trying to make an accurate representation of it. It's just really interesting.
Right.
But it's not converting. It's not meant to convert people.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people of Jewish culture watching The Passion of the Christ.
Right.
And they say it's a great film.
Right.
They're not converting to Christianity.
But they're interested in the
story. But they're interested in the story.
Very, very good point. Very good point. And that's what you've done so remarkably well, is you took your ego and hubris out of it. You were there to tell the Bob Lazar, and not just tell.
Show it.
Painstakingly recreate what he saw. And some of the things that I'm skipping so much of my own line of questioning here, but I know
Blender.
what you guys are doing. For anyone out there who doesn't know, I could spend just one episode, maybe 4, just talking to you about how you
that
did
was
it,
done.
how you recreated, how many conversations did you have to go, Bob, was it this color? What was this look like? How much, what do you remember about this picture? Did it get, you know what I mean? Did it have reflection? Did it reflect light?
Yeah.
Did it not reflect light? Did it absorb light?
Right.
Which we'll get to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what you guys did, remarkable. And people don't know that it started off not as a documentary.
No, it started off to make a model. This whole thing started off with me wanting to make a professional collector grade die-cast model of the sport model flying saucer.
Because you're a merch guy.
Yeah, because I'm a merch guy. Yeah.
And boy, what has it become?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, and we'll get there, of course. I kind of skipped ahead, so a little tease for you for what's coming later. The black triangle phenomenon is something. I mean, Jess, you even saw a black triangle not even a year ago. She was driving up in Framingham and north to south or east to west, and it was like a point in the sky, and then instantaneously was over her head.
Wow.
Triangular shape. So it's like the triangle, and I know a lot of people jump to the TR3B, the Astra, and all that. What did you learn about the black triangle phenomenon in Canada?
Well, I investigated it for a long time and met other investigators that had investigated it for many years prior and after. The black triangular craft is a very, very common UFO, if you want to call it, meaning a lot of people who witness UFOs, UAPs, the new nomenclature, is the fact that they're seeing black triangular objects that are flying, that are real airframes. They're real tangible material. It's not some type of illusion in the sky. It's not a phenomena in the sky. It's an object in the sky that has lights on it in most cases. They're varying in sizes. Some people say the size of a beetle, and some people say the size of a football field. And in some cases, it's gigantic. Like you can actually land an airplane on it. So there's various sizes of triangles, which is also very mysterious to me because they're all, a lot of witnesses saying they see a black triangular craft, and by the way, always black. I have not ever myself personally ever heard of a account of somebody seeing a triangular shaped object that was not black.
Like silver.
No,
there was silver triangle.
I haven't. Now, I don't know if there has been cases outside of Canada or anywhere else that have seen other colors. I have never heard of another color.
That's a very interesting point. Me either.
Yeah, they're always black, which is a big deal to me because that means whether it's small or big, it's still black. So there's that's a detail that basically correlates to themselves, which means maybe it has something to do with the material that these things are made of. Now, there's always, in most cases, lights on them at the extremities. In some cases, there's a light right in the center of the triangle. Sometimes it's a light. Sometimes it looks like some type of plasma or lava moving, like it looks like fire, but it's plasma type of orange, red, yellow material that's moving. It's like liquid. And sometimes they have lights that are moving, like I guess like when you see LED lights that are kind of doing that. So some people have seen lights that are moving under them. Whatever the case is, they're black, they're triangular. Some of them are flat top, flat bottom. So they're like you know, a thick triangle versus some that say it's a triangular craft and it kind of tapers in the middle and goes up like a pyramid, like a pointed top in the center of it, and other ones can't see on top, so you can't really tell if there was something on top
Right.
or not. But in Ontario, in Quebec, between 2013 2017, there are hundreds of cases of people who witnessed black triangular craft out there. The sizes that were reported were between, I don't know, maybe 60 feet, 50 to 60 feet. All the biggest one that I was familiar with was a 300-foot size craft. That's a big craft. That's a gigantic craft. Whatever it is, it's in the sky. It's 300 square feet. 300 feet in diameter. That's huge. In length, that's gigantic. So, and this is not something that is being reported by people who know about this. This was hundreds of reports of regular citizens, especially 2013 to 2016, 17. The people were not the UFO UAP topic really started gaining a lot of mainstream traction in 2017 after the
Times article.
the New York Times. So this was prior. So people were not very accustomed to talking about UFOs especially in Canada. So having all these different people talking about these black triangular crafts that they saw, their wives confirming it, their husbands confirming it. I had a woman who saw it, and then her husband was a provincial police officer who also saw it, and I wanted him to come on the record, and he didn't want to because he says, I don't want to lose my job if I say this, but he saw it. So whatever was flying around or is still flying around was witnessed by tons of different people, photographed by two very good quality photos of them. One of them was on the front page of the newspaper in Montreal in 2014, and another one was taken by somebody with an iPhone in Welland, Ontario, which is near Niagara Falls, and you could see the plasma in the center of it. And these are regular people. These are just people living
Joe
out
Schmo down the road.
They're just, oh my God, and they either see it or photographed it. Now, I've investigated a lot of them. I've met with a lot of them. I can say unequivocally that all of them were not looking for attention. Most of them did not want their names to go out. Why would you go all the way to trying to call the police, where the police doesn't even know what to do with this?
They refer to MUFON.
They refer to MUFON, which is then referred to me. So then I would get the report. I would ask them, would you like to go on the record? No, I don't want to go on the record. So you went out of your way to report something and you don't want to be known about it. Yeah. Why? Because I don't want to be associated to this UFO stuff, which I find to be a big tell that they're not lying. Okay. They're not looking for attention. Now, I've also had an opportunity, to sit with many of them where, obviously as a field investigator, I did that a lot, where you're trying to read the person. You're trying to see, is this person crazy? Is this person trying to, concoct some type of bullshit story? No, never. Not one time did I ever feel like these people were making this up. When I met Chris Ramsey in a couple of years ago,
great guy,
Area love
52.
Chris. A big shout out to Chris. He's in near Montreal. He saw it with his wife. He recorded it with his phone.
Or Black Triangle?
Yeah, he saw one with him and his wife saw it. So I was like, and he said, dude, I found out about you because you had investigated it. I saw it with my wife. I recorded it, and we talked about it, and it was exactly in the same area where I had investigated for multiple years. So I know for sure. I mean, I'm so convinced that there's a black triangular craft that was flying around there that I'm willing to bet my life on it. That's how certain I am. Do I have evidence of that? No, I don't. I don't have evidence of it because it's not wanting to be seen. But if all these people, there's so many people that's seen it, and all these people don't want to go public, they don't want to be known for it. They're honest, hardworking citizens. They're normal people. Some of them are police officers, some doctors, some of them are professionals. But they're like, no. You know, I'm just letting you know, I saw that because it's weird that that was in the sky. Why would all these people, why would there be such a gigantic group of people that don't know each other, by the way, and over in terms of distance, southwestern Ontario all the way to the northern Laurentians or north of Montreal, all that territory, that you're looking at about, 500 to 600 miles in distance? You're going to tell me that there's like 300 different witness accounts, and they all kind of colluded,
and they're all saying
they're
the
all
same
going like,
thing.
"Hey, all right, we're gonna pretend there was
Right.
a black triangle."
We're gonna trick MUFON.
Like, that's insane to think that.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's something. One of the witnesses got harassed by a helicopter. A helicopter came so low on his property that was literally making the stuff on his property fly around. That's how low the helicopter was. I actually tracked them. I called the military. I found exactly who it was, and the pilot was forced to call and apologize that he did that. That happened in 2015.
Do we have record of this?
Of that, I have it in my. Of course, I have my report from that time, and he says, "Oh, I just saw him on his land, and it was my bad. I just wanted to play around, and I went really low with the helicopter." I said,
"Bullshit.
That's a dick move. All right, that's a dick move. You're
anybody.
You're military, and you're flying that low with your heli. First of all, if the helicopter hits a power line and you crash, you kill somebody and yourself. So I got really angry with that, and I thought that's
bullshit.
I don't believe that you were just trying to intimidate or make have some fun. Come on.
You were trying to intimidate.
Yeah, you're trying to intimidate. And he also, the same witness, about a year prior, caught a dual blade, kind of a Chinook type of helicopter,
right,
flying about I don't know, from where he was, because he's got a little hill right in front of his house, maybe like 150 feet high is the top of the hill. The helicopter was right on top at 11 p.m. with a bunch of lights on, and there was no reason for a Chinook helicopter, or looked like a Chinook helicopter, to be flying there. I reported this. I basically investigated it. I did a talk at McGill University about this. This was a really big thing that we did back then about this case about black triangular crafts. So there were weird things happening in the area that had to do with helicopters, but helicopters are loud. Helicopters are there to search for stuff. So and then we had people in mainstream going like, these people are just seeing helicopters. One of the craziest things I had read in the news was like, all these people are just seeing hunters in helicopters looking for moose. Now, I swear that was actually in the newspaper. And I remember countering it going, so you're telling me that these people who saw these black triangular crafts at night in the Laurentians in Quebec, that whatever they saw was a helicopter that was silent, and there was people on there that were looking for moose in pitch black? Is that what you're telling the people they saw? I said, I just want to reconfirm that's what you think they saw. So that was part of the daily investigations and rebuttals that we had to do at MUFON with people that were clearly out to say this stuff isn't real.
Muddy the water, yeah.
And it's like, your arguments are absolutely ridiculous.
They're almost more absurd than we saw the black triangle.
It's 100% more absurd. But I think what they do is they know that by saying something so absurd, that it will actually catch the attention of people more than if they say, no, it was probably another type of craft. Now the person's like another type of craft, but if you say it's just hunters looking for moose, people are reading the paper. They're busy paying their bills. They could barely get by in life. So they're, oh yeah, that's all it is. And they turn the page and that's it. Solved.
Moved.
It's just moose at night.
Yeah.
And they're looking for them in pitch black in a helicopter over houses.
That is such...
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, do you think, and actually 2 questions here. Are there any, maybe the team knows this or can find out, and is there any nuclear or any strategic base in that area?
Yeah. Yes. So there used to be, yeah, absolutely. So in the Laurentians, in Saint Adolphe d'Auward, it's called Saint Adolphe d'Auward. I could send you the information.
Please.
There used to be a NORAD base there. Okay.
Interesting.
So, and they had gigantic satellite spheres. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they used to have, it was on top of a mountain near Lac Saint-Denis, which is right there. And there's so many sightings of the black triangular craft around there, but the base is long been shut down, and there's graffiti on it. It's no longer active.
There's nothing.
Oh, zero.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that there used to be a NORAD base there, and that there were just a lot of sightings in that area, which I found to be quite. I always found to be interesting. I always thought, but it doesn't make any sense. It's closed. It's shut down. It's broken. It's dangerous. Now you can't even access it anymore. I had gone up there. I took a bunch of drone shots from up there. It was a really beautiful place to go up, because then you see an incredible view. Like, your point of view up there is insanely beautiful because you're on top of a mountain and you're seeing all the Laurentians. It's really beautiful.
I want to come up and see that area.
Yeah. You're
really
anytime, and I'll take you exactly to where that was, and you'll see that it's kind of a strategic location. But again, I cannot explain. Yeah, one of the things that I did see, which was reported, I had reported on it, and I basically had said it's interesting. I don't think it has anything to do with it. But I thought was interesting is that the main area where there were the concentration of cases, there was a lake that had been completely drained of water. It was no longer had any water. There's a whole giant lake. I'll send you the pictures because I went with my drone to see this, and I was like, I noticed it because I would go on Google Maps, and when you go on Google Maps, you have different layers to it. You could see it. It looks like a cartoon versus when you click satellite, you have real satellite. So on the cartoon version, call it cartoon. I don't know what the real way of saying is. You could see the roads. I just needed to see the roads and the waterways and the lakes and all that. And so I remember seeing a lake. And I'm like, oh, there's a lake there. I didn't know there was a lake. So because I said I had driven by there. I don't remember seeing a lake. So I click on satellite. And you can still do it now. You see that it's blue, and you click satellite, and it's an empty. It's completely. So I'm like, oh, that's weird, and it's just a weird thing.
And if you've heard these other accounts of craft like sucking up the water.
I've heard. I'd heard stuff
and
like
we
that.
Can't, speculative.
Speculative. I mean, I try to stay away from speculation, and I tried very hard during all my time doing all this to be very careful in not making it become a confirmation of something else, because that is a dangerous thing to do, where maybe that if that evidence was found in another case, maybe that would have been really vital to that case. But now I'm just investigating somebody who saw black triangular craft. If I find an empty lake, maybe it has nothing to do with it. So I was very careful in not trying to make connections where they didn't belong.
And especially with MUFON, it's a complete volunteer organization.
And
you're not making money.
Exactly. And one of the reasons why I also kind of had to take a step away from that at that point, and I did, because first of all, I got bored of basically investigating the excitement of people saying they saw something. Excited people who see UFOs are a dime a dozen. There's a lot of cases out there.
Right.
There is not any lack of cases out there.
Right.
A lot of people have seen UFOs, but it's just somebody saying they saw a UFO.
And you can't do anything with that.
What do you do with it? So after a while, I got frustrated. I was like, of course I believe them. Like a lot of them I believed. I'm like, oh, I believe you saw this. And that what okay.
I can't go anywhere.
What can I do with this? Nothing.
Like even if you have a video of a little dot in the sky.
I
like,
wish, and this is where I said earlier, shouldn't be guys like me, it shouldn't be investigative reporters, whatever, because we don't even have the tie-ins with the official military or the official, agencies that could do more work on them. Imagine MUFON has hundreds of thousands of cases in their CMS system. It's called a CMS system, where they catalog
it's like
and
a
log
management.
all their witness accounts. Imagine if that was intricately connected to, I don't know, police or military or government agencies. Wouldn't that be interesting, where it would be like a collaborative effort where now they're going, oh, there was something there. Yeah, we've been in fact noticing there's something there, where you're now looking further into an area. Like yesterday, Eugene was talking about, maybe potential rocks. It was talking about geological signatures in certain areas. Well, why wouldn't that be something that we look into more? But MUFON's not going to do it. MUFON doesn't have any money. They don't have any money. What do they have? $500,000, $1 million?
And
even
that
if they have
goes to-
$5 million, $5 million is jack shit if you want to investigate UFOs in the United States of America. I mean, you really have to think about what we're talking about here. You really want to investigate this? You need a lot of support of different agencies who have allocated funds, who can all help each other out. But nobody's doing that. And then you have the Galileo Project saying that they're going to go and look for stuff. Then you have people at the Galileo Project looking for money, because that's what they're doing, is they're Soul Foundation, Galileo, trying to come up with the UAP disclosure fund, whatever it is, so that they can make themselves rich with getting good salaries, so that they can go look for pieces of metal at the bottom of the sea. But that's not connected to the agencies. That's not connected to MUFON. That's not connected to government. That's just a group of people who are going to put money into something and essentially look for something that is already been. There's a lot of information that they could go get from past sightings and amalgamate all that information and start working inner agencies, but nobody's doing that. So I kind of had to step away, because I thought, this is all we're going to do, is we're going to continue getting a lot of people saying, I saw a UFO. Now everybody has a cell phone on them, so you're going to have a lot of people say, I saw a UFO, and I recorded it. Good for you. But on your iPhone, it's going to look like a dot in the sky.
Period.
Amazing. I see a dot in the sky. There's a lot of dots in the sky. Last night in Montreal was the Grand Prix, and it's a Grand Prix weekend today. And they had dots in the sky everywhere because they had drone shows, right? So dots in the sky nowadays could be drones, could be Chinese lanterns, could be anything. So, okay, all right. So you saw something, and you recorded a dot in the sky. That's not pushing the needle forward.
And
we need interagency help. We need more support.
And honestly, one of the things I wanted to ask you about being a MUFON investigator specifically is when someone comes to you and they say, hey, I saw UFO, it was crazy. It was the craziest thing. And then you debunk it.
Well, there's two things.
They get upset.
Absolutely. And this is actually, that's a good point. So there's two things that would happen also. I would have the opportunity to meet, first of all, as director, I was managing all the investigators across the country. I would be the one that would be dispatching certain calls that were coming in. Either they got them directly, or I would get them and then dispatch or review some of the stuff that they were doing to see, does this make any sense? Do we even catalog this, or is this just a random person who saw something that they misidentified as a flying saucer or as a UFO, sorry, and it was just, I don't know, Venus or something, which is a big percentage, right? You have two things. You have the people that are that are actually witnessing these cases. That's number one. And then you have the investigators that are investigating the cases. The first one is the people that are seeing these things. A lot of them are genuine.
Right.
They're just going, I saw something.
Right.
Great.
Fair enough.
It doesn't mean they saw a real extraterrestrial craft. It just means they saw something, which to them was real. Now, that's a big deal right there. What turns that into a real UFO, let's call it, a UFO to me is unknown. When I can say, oh, you saw something that was not identifiable, I don't call that a UFO anymore. I identified that as an anomalous object.
Okay.
Okay? It's not unidentified. I identified it as anomalous. As anomalous.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
Because if I go, it's unidentified, it could really mean absolutely anything. Okay?
I see.
So that's also something that we have to be careful when we say the government just released UFO videos. Yeah, they did. Because it's unidentified stuff in the air. It's what I'm interested in. What can we identify out of those videos?
That's anomalous.
That's anomalous.
That we
That we can 100% say that's not unidentified. It is identified as something that is not normal.
Ours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay? That's important. That's a very big deal right there. And some of the people that are reporting, that are seeing these things, the witnesses, they're also excited that they saw something.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to tell them you just saw Venus, or you just saw the moon through the clouds, or that you just saw landing lights, or you saw a Chinese lantern, or you saw a drone. They don't want to hear that. They want to they want it to be a big deal because they've already invested telling their family and friends that they saw a UFO. They record, or either they just saw it, and now they're even talking to this group that investigates them, and now they're calling me, and so I saw a real UFO, and then you go, sorry, you didn't.
Yeah, we did the work, and you
know what I mean. And
saw.
a lot of that was due to Starlink. Starlink became a massive problem because a lot of people started seeing Starlink, and you're like, unfortunately, you didn't see a UFO. It's just the satellites, and no, I'm telling you, and it's like, I know it might have appeared anomalous, but it's actually that, and so
they don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear it because they've invested themselves already with everyone, and now they would have to call everyone and be like, actually, you know what? It was just Starlink, and a lot of people don't have that in them, the humility to do that. The bigger problem was because MUFON is a lot of what do you call it? People that donate their time. They're volunteers, right? So they're basically doing the test. They become field investigators, and now they're out there and they get a call and somebody saw something. They go out there. They're interested in having some type of notoriety in the world of investigating UFOs. Good on them. But they're a little too ambitious about it. So suddenly they get a case. The case is easily disproved or explainable, but they don't want that terrestrial explanation. They want it to be unknown.
They want it to be the Phoenix Lights.
Because now they're the investigators on it. So I was oftentimes having to be the party pooper and be like, dude, it's not a UFO. And so I came across as like this asshole who was always trying to take away their limelight. And it's like, I'm not taking away your limelight. I'm just pointing out it's not a UFO. Okay. So that also is part of the challenge of this field
Right.
is that you're not just challenged by the lack of evidence or the lack of good quality photography and videography, but you're also now dealing with a lot of people who want this to be real, want to be the ones who captured this, right? Yeah, and that creates
I want to
a
believe, baby.
massive issue. So there was a time where I was involved in it to a point where I thought, I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to be the guy who's constantly telling them it's not, because first of all, it got boring because it became clerical work and I don't feel like I'm a clerk. So I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm made for this anymore. I think I've done my due diligence. I've spent enough years in this. And so I'm going to go do some work on my own and try to contribute in a completely different way, because I've essentially come to understand one thing. UFOs are real. There are real cases all around the world, not just the United States. Like a lot of people say, why are they only in the United States? They're not. They're literally all over the world. It's just, unfortunately, we just don't get those stories as much reading about it.
In a lot of cultures, it's
acceptable.
even
More accepted.
Even Italy, places like that,
Absolutely.
they're just more accepting to
Absolutely.
it. So people aren't reporting it as anomalous.
Yeah, because it's also there's an American superiority about UFOs. Okay?
Right.
And so we got the best UFO stories. Look at Virginia. The Americans went and grabbed the craft and the alien.
Right.
The Brazilians suck. They don't know how to deal with that. You know what I mean?
They had to give it to the Americans.
The magenta craft in Italy. Well, it was the Pope that contacted the Americans. The Americans picked it up. Again, America, which is fine. But what happens is also you have now these other countries that they don't have as much data, so they're not producing enough work or evidence to put themselves on that same par category as America. And this is where I say we need more interagency help. We need more government help, intergovernments, not a UFO group in France working with a UFO group in America. That's just UFO groups.
Right.
I'm talking about real interagency, real budgets, not a couple $1 million. I'm talking about, and if you take all the agencies put together, you have $100 million of resources. If we want to go and look at something, you could go look at something.
Right.
That's what I think should be happening. But we're not seeing that.
Right.
So we're
sad.
unfortunately going to just get these UFO drops of, again, black and white videos of things moving around. It's interesting. They're interesting. I'm not saying they're not. But that's not disclosure.
I agree.
That's just a video of an unidentified flying object.
I agree.
That's
I really
what it
do.
is. So it's cool that it's happening, but that's all it is.
But to the black triangles, we don't have to spend too much because obviously there's so much we can talk about. Given how long you spent looking at them, do you think there are like humans or theirs or something that maybe is a little bit in between?
I don't know.
Fair.
I really don't know. I've heard so many people talk. We obviously the TR3B. There's the Aurora. There's this. There's all. They gave them every possible name and you could think of. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think that it's fair to say that it's either or. I think it could be both. I think also because of the years that these have been reported, they go back so long ago that if you start thinking about if these black triangular crafts were reported that long ago, we're talking decades ago, then if that's the case, if it's a government object for the last 40 years, it's just flying around over people's homes for 40 years.
Right. It just doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up to me. To me, that's some. I don't look at it as like if you were to ask me in 2013, how many cases were there? I'll say 200 because I remember there were about 200. In 2014, there was about 50 of them that I knew about. There could be more. Who knows? But when I was talking to those people, one of them says, the first time I saw it was in 1996. And then another person will say, yeah, I remember in the 90s. I can't remember exactly, but I saw it. Now, suddenly, you have decades gap there. Then you start researching black triangular crafts, and they go back a long time ago. So if the government was reverse engineering, reproducing, or making these things back in the 1980s, 90s, and flying them around, they're flying the exact same thing for all these decades over residential areas? Is that really what the government's doing? Is that really what's going on? Like, are we? If that's what's really going on, wow, I'm okay. I'm open to it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just find that hard to believe.
Right. You know what? I'm kind of right there with you.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Because what's the point of the facade of like NASA at that point? You know,
I
and
don't
like
think NASA has any interest. Yeah,
right.
NASA's not interested in looking for life in the universe. I think it's more the Jet Propulsion Laboratory looking for.
Yeah, but why are we working with jets if we got this stuff?
But that's exactly.
If it's ours, why are we still wasting?
They have to maintain their jobs, their budgets, their employees, their allocations, the image that is out there. I'm not saying NASA doesn't bring anything to the table. I'm not saying that at all.
Of course.
What I'm saying is that if we're going to be looking at the real group of people researching this phenomena, it shouldn't just be NASA or the ESA or it shouldn't just be them.
No.
There's a lot more that we could expand on here, and it could absolutely be a gigantic piece of the puzzle that's missing that could maybe help ESA, NASA, all these space agencies. Who knows?
Right. You worked closely with Emily Trim.
Yes.
Tragically passed away about a year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago, yeah.
And she was from the Ariel School encounter.
Yeah.
Is there anything that she ever told you privately that never made it into the Ariel School documentary? Or
sure.
Maybe can you recap the Rura Zimbabwe case?
Yeah, the Rura.
And then we can get into this.
The Rura Zimbabwe case was September 16th, 1994, in rural Zimbabwe, a place called Rua. There's a small primary school there that still is there, and had children, many of which were from Zimbabwe, but also had some kids from other countries because their parents were missionaries out there and were sending their kids to school. That's why Emily and her brother and her sister were there, and basically. That day they were. It's a primary school. Age group was 7 to 12 years old, if I'm not wrong, and it's really in a rural area. There's not much around there. The school ground is quite large, and it has a log barrier perimeter that it created. So they took these big logs, big trees that they cut down, and they put these logs all around so that they could create like their perimeter, right? And that was where the kids played. That was their, let's say, school ground. So during recess, they would just be running around within the log barrier. They would never go outside of it. And a lot of the kids used to go running on the logs. So they would call it the running around the logs. So they would jump from one log to the next and do the whole perimeter of the school. And that was like a common thing that they were doing. Back in 94... there were only 4 television channels in Rua, Zimbabwe, and 2 of them were news, which were kind of like really basic news channels, and 2 of them were just like very mild, informative stuff. They didn't have the same, they didn't have MTV or didn't have anything, anything that we had here. So basically, television was not something the kids were looking at too much back then. There was no internet, so they were basically learning about life for real. They're outside, they're playing, they're doing whatever. So on that morning,
Can I interject?
of course.
So again, I think what he's saying here is that they're also not being influenced
Yes.
by media or whatever
Actually, that's
to concoct this.
that's an exceptionally good point, because they had nothing that was potentially going to make their imaginations create an alien story. That's a very important point. So they're not watching alien movies. They're not familiar with alien movies. They don't even know these things exist, okay? We did. I mean, we back then knew about Close Encounters, E.T. I don't think, no, Independence Day had not come out yet. So Independence,
99,
yeah,
yeah.
that was exactly. So you still had a lot, the movie Aliens, all that stuff, but they were not watching that. Plus,
No.
These are kids, so their main source of education is their school, their parents, and society. Right now, it's 10:15 in the morning. It's recess. They go outside. The teachers are inside the school having a teacher meeting. The kids all run outside, as they always wanted to do, because kids just want to run around and play. So they're all outside. It's a beautiful sunny day in Zimbabwe, and there are different clusters of groups. So there's like kids in different areas.
Yeah.
Totally, there was more than six. There was about like 100 some kids out there, and there was a sound that they heard. The kids said that it sounded like a high-pitched flute or a high-pitched ambulance sound, like a really high-pitched sound. And they're like, "What is that?" They were not used to it, and they looked up and they saw something shimmer in the air. And there was there was 3 crafts. From some of them explained there were 3 of them, and they were silver discs, and they clearly associated the sound to that. And one of them landed about 100 yards or 150 yards, can't remember. No, so 200 yards, something like that, from where they were. But they could see it. It went on the ground, and it didn't land straight. It landed a little bit on an angle. And they're like, "What is that?" And some of the kids thought it was a rock. They're looking at it. It looked like, from far away, imagine a dull silver. From far away, you'd think, is that a rock?
Right.
What is that? It's not something that they expected to see. And then some kids didn't see it landing. They just saw it once the other kids are pointing at it, because they're not all in synchronicity, like following this thing. So some are playing over there, some are playing over there. There's a whole bunch that saw it land. Everybody's like, look over there. Now everybody's going, what are you talking about? Oh shit, is that a rock? So they're not 100% aware of what they're looking at right away. Some of them saw this thing land, and suddenly they saw something. The air looked like the heat off asphalt, so it was kind of a wavy feel of, like, some,
I'm familiar.
you know what I mean? And they're looking at that from a distance, and they're going, and they see something moving. They see these black figures moving, like they're people, but they're, when the air is, when it's like that, you can't really tell what you're looking at. So like, what the hell is that? So there's some of them that are scared and run away, because they're like, what? They're in Africa. They don't know if it's animals. They don't know, what if we get attacked by
Good
something.
point.
So they run away, while some of them get closer, because they're like, what is that? Like most kids would do. Either you run away because you're scared,
Fight or flight.
or you go towards it because you're so curious. And there was these 2, what they said looked like people, very small, dressed in black, moving around very quickly, very fast.
That was one thing I always heard, that it was almost like they were
not touching the ground. Yeah,
I didn't know how to say it.
Yeah, they were not touching the ground. They were like moving as if they were like just moving very what's what's the right way of
Like
saying
flip, like looking like a flip book, right?
No, that's what they were showing. But when they were moving, it felt like they were gliding. That's the right word. They were like gliding like this, but really fast. And one of them went on top of the craft. So there was one of them on the top of the craft, while the other one was on the bottom. They're seeing this, and at that point, Emily, who was there, was next to Liesel Field, who's very famous for having got interviewed by John Mack at the time, little black girl that was interviewed. And Liesel and Emily were side by side. They were standing next to each other. And Liesel and Emily were on the wood, on the logs, okay? And basically, they're standing there because now they're kind of like mesmerized by what the hell is going on. They stopped running. They were hopping, and then they kind of started running again, like hopping, like imagine the two girls running and hopping from one log to another. And Emily looked to the right, and she says these two beings came very close to them, were not touching the ground, they were hovering, and as the girls hopped, the beings hopped like that. They were like mimicking
them.
And so the girls stopped. They're like, what is that? And they came right to them, and they're on the logs. So the little girls, they were 7 and 8, so they're tiny, right? They're not big, and the girls are standing on this log, and the beings are maybe 5 feet away. So it's very close, and they're hovering a foot off the ground, and they're in black. Emily remembers them being all black, while Liesel remembers them being wearing black,
like black flight suit,
like a very tight jumpsuit of some type, and that Liesel says their skin was very white, like the purest white you can imagine, and big black eyes, like super big black eyes, and that would wrap around a little bit to the sides. While Emily, who was to Liesel's right, she didn't remember it like that. She remembers them being all black. But she was staring at their arms more than anything, because she was trying to figure out, are they animals? Like, what is this? And that's a really important thing to remember. They didn't think they were looking at aliens. They're wondering, is this an animal that is standing? That's what anyone of that age group would be thinking in Africa. They wouldn't be going, "Oh, here we are. Here's aliens." You're not thinking aliens, right?
At that time.
At that time, absolutely.
Maybe now, but
not at that time. They thought maybe it's animals.
So and that's a very good distinction to make, though, that she's kind of focused on.
She said Emily was looking at the pot belly. She said
torso?
They had a pot belly.
They had a pot belly?
Yeah, she said the aliens had a little pot
these
belly.
Aliens and their carbs. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
God damn.
So they're very skinny, very small. She said 3.5 feet, very small, and she said they were their size.
So
she says because they were elevated off the floor
and they were on the log,
they were equally at the height of the girls, right? So,
oh my god!
So they were just staring at each other like that, and she said they were very small. They were our size, she said, and the one moved its arm. The one to the left of Emily, which was the one in front of Liesel, extended its arm out like this towards Liesel, and Emily said I could see the material or the texture of its skin. She called it skin. Okay, now it probably was not skin, but you have to remember it's a 7-year-old telling the story here. She thought it was skin. She goes, it kind of looked like a reptile material, like texture, but then again, if it was wearing a suit, and she says, and it shimmered with the light. She goes, when it lifted its arm, she goes, when you see a snake and it has like a shimmer to it with the light.
Yeah.
She says that's what it had. It had like a shimmer to it when it lifted its arm like that. And Liesel doesn't remember this, but Emily remembered it. She says Liesel put her arm out like that, so they were about to hold hands, Liesel and the being. And the beings are looking at the girls straight in the eyes. And as soon as that happened, because there's two beings and the two girls, Liesel to the left, Emily to the right, they're seeing images in their heads. Like they're no longer seeing the beings, they're seeing something in their mind. And Emily described it as a book, a picture book that you would just be going like really fast with,
the flip book,
like really, really fast. Like she says, it was so many images that she couldn't make out an image because there was so many of them that she could see. And then a message that came through that said there to Emily, there's a good way of using technology. There's a bad way of using technology. You can do better. And Liesel is seeing what she called look like the end of the world, where the trees are all falling, there's no air, people are on the ground suffocating, and they're all dying. Now, this is kids looking at this. Now, the last projected image was a huge bomb. Like they saw a fiery explosion. So the kids are receiving this. Now, I'm giving you the perspective of Liesel and Emily, which are one side by side with each other. But then you have all these other kids that are there, and they're essentially those kids that are right over there are freaking out because they're also getting these messages. So Emily and Liesel were literally side by side. Everybody was there, but everybody experienced it their way.
This episode of Total Disclosure is brought to you by Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite partners that we've ever had on the show. As I given up alcohol, I'm very open about this on the show, and I think a lot more people choosing that same path. So if you're looking for something that can truly replace alcohol in any setting, whether you're unwinding after a long day of research, hosting friends, or just want to stay clear-headed and in control, Good Feels delivers a completely different kind of experience. It starts with their 12-ounce stubby bottles of cannabis-infused seltzers. They're crisp, clean, zero sugar, and 0 calories. And they're designed to give you a smooth, fast-acting, elevated feeling without the crash, without the hangover, and without the downsides of alcohol. And if you're more than an at-home mixologist, Good Feels also has fast-acting beverage enhancers. You can add them to literally anything. Sparkling water, mocktails, whatever you like, and create your own customized experience. This isn't about checking out, it's about tuning in, staying present, and upgrading the way that you kick back and relax. And right now, listeners of Total Disclosure get 20% off their order. That's getgoodfeels.com for 20% off exclusive to this audience. Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. Replace the alcohol, keep the experience, stay in control. All right, guys, we're back from the break, and I am here with my friend Luigi Vendittelli. And it's been, like I said, we've had such a great conversation so far. Where let's wrap up some of the Ariel School
Sure.
and jump into Bob Lazar. I think, of course, that's what everyone wants to hear about right now.
Of course.
But I definitely want to do my due diligence and, make sure we had a well-rounded conversation. I also want to take this time to thank everyone who has been supporting the show lately. We're growing at a very, breakneck pace on the audio side. Definitely have some work to do on YouTube, but with your help, we can keep the lights on literally and fly great guests like Luigi in. If you want to take the time, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and if you can and you want to go a step further, become a member. It really does help. This isn't free. I don't do it for the money, but I just want to be able to continue to facilitate these amazing, amazing discussions. So with that being said, let's jump back in. We were talking about the Ariel School.
Yep.
and the beings. So this isn't just a sighting,
Oh God, no.
right? This is something that those kids end up dealing. And I know we call them kids, but they're probably
adults
older
now.
than me.
Yeah.
They continued to deal with throughout their life, and they stuck with their story.
Yeah.
They're still saying what they saw was what they saw, or at least
Absolutely.
what they believed they saw. John Mack got involved.
Mm-hmm.
Harvard almost took his job away because of it and what he was looking into. I want to kind of combine this because you did some time studying alien abduction.
Yes.
Finishing out the Ariel School and moving into the alien abduction, was there more to the Ariel School incident that we don't know?
Oh, absolutely. And it ties into the abduction. And it's important that people know that Ariel, that day, the September 16th, 94, that day was clearly an incredibly unique event because it was some type of landing and communication. If you really want to know what a close encounter of the third kind looks like, Ariel School in Africa is the primary example of a real close encounter of the third kind. The aliens, or whoever they were, we call them aliens because it's an easy way to describe them, came down, came over to the kids. They landed, came out of the craft, went over to the kids, communicated a bunch of stuff telepathically. The kids got really distraught about it. Some of them got frightened. Some of them were really confused for the longest time. And terrible things occurred afterwards. Some kids didn't do very well. And there's going to be more that's going to come out about that. And it continued after that. Some of the kids, we're only calling them kids because we're referring to it back then. Some of them had visitation after the event, the night after, the couple of nights that followed. The headmaster of the school also had something happen to her right after it happened. Clearly, it wasn't the last time that these beings visited the kids. Not all the kids, but many of them. And some of them went through a very traumatic experience during the event and more after the event. And so when I think about Ariel, and because of my implication and involvement with Emily, and now Emily is passed, I've become close. I was already getting close with Liesl Field, who's now become a close friend of mine, and also now Paul Trim, which is Emily's brother, who was there. He was the oldest kid there. He was the prefect at the school when this happened. He was the one who was watching the kids when that happened. And it affected everybody. It affected all the people that you see as kids in the videos. I was very fortunate to have working with Emily for 10 years on this. So not just a little bit, I mean 10 years of my life dedicated to that. And I became extremely close with Emily. And the fact that she passed away completely broke my heart because she's 38 years old and it was not the right time to die. And I learned a lot from it. It was like for me, it was the perfect new life in this field, going from studying or researching or investigating daily occurrences that were coming in on the CMS to letting all that go and diving deep into what possibly was, I considered to be one of the most important contact cases in history. Whether we like it or not, some form of unknown beings landed with some type of physical silver disc craft next to the school, approached the children and communicated information to them that was extremely alarming and disturbing because it had a lot to do with us as a species, us as people. That was a difficult, that to me was very new, was very big to dive into that. And what it did to them, and then what subsequently happened to them, made me realize that there's a lot of deeper issues and deeper things to look at when it comes to aliens than our surface level interest and curiosity, which is completely normal. What do they look like? Where do you think they come from? What are they saying? How do they talk? How do they smell? What do they fly? How do they fly it? All that stuff is, of course, extremely interesting, and I don't debate it. But once you get past that, once you do take the time to look into all that, and now you step into who they are and what they were trying to show us, is a completely different ballgame.
Right. I mean, so those Zimbabwe school kids in '94 described showing that they were showing, the being showed them visions of environmental collapse.
Yeah.
And look around. We're at a time, and then, you know, people not being able to breathe. And again, I'm not saying that we're there
We're not
yet,
there,
but people are suffering now worse than they ever have when abundance seems like it's around us.
I would contend with that. I'll even say things that Emily would say, because she was an incredibly caring person to kids and to humanity, to people. She was a very, very, very sensitive person. And she would always say, you know, we're watching back then. Remember there was a time where everybody was putting a French flag on their Facebook profile because somebody shot a bunch of people in France. Remember that? And there was like a whole bunch of things that was being put in the, I guess, on social media. Of course, there's terrible things that have happened in the world. But what about the atrocities that keep happening in Africa? What about, you know, there was things that had happened in Botswana, in Zaire, in Rwanda, in Cameroon, things that were absolutely horrible, and nobody talks about them. We're talking about genocide. We're talking about absolute poverty, removing all the riches from a certain part of the population. Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that whatever they were showing, I think, was a little bit of introspection that we needed to do, but not many of us have the time to do it. I think most of us have a really good heart. I think a lot of us mean well, and I think we all kind of want things to be peaceful and happy and all that. But it's like vision. It's not real. That's not reality. Okay. And I think the aliens were just attempting to demonstrate how severe things were getting. But
how if we continue down this path,
it'll get really bad.
Really bad.
But I think also the problem is that people aren't ready for it. So it's like you could be ready for it while you're listening to this podcast, and you're going, yeah, it's true, and it affects you. And then the podcast is over, and you think about it for about 20 minutes, and then your phone rings or your phone dings or something happens. Somebody shows up at your house, and, oh, you got to do this. Oh, my God, that we got to pay that. Wait, go do that. And then you're gone. You're now back into that loop of run, pay things, make sure you survive, make sure you're well. Oh, my God, we don't have enough money. Wait, we have to do this. Like, there's a reality that is facing humans now that is kind of a trap, but we don't see it because for us it's life. But what we're kind of failing to see is that, you know, we're running, being told, yeah, keep going, go to church, believe in God, be good, and then run, but don't look at how unbelievably toxic we are to our own species. But in many different ways. It's not just because we throw garbage on the ground. It's not just that. It's not like we're gonna save the air or save the ocean. Yeah, we got to do that, but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's a lot deeper than that. And it's a hard conversation, and not a lot of people are willing to commit a long time talking about it.
Right. And do you think that they were showing that, because this is also something that we see a lot of, is beings communicating with younger people,
Yeah.
almost to like, because they know that they can't change an old dog, right? And they're like, all right, let's
Well,
inspire or show the next generation.
I
The
think
the people
yeah.
with the people with brains that are still like
They're-
open to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think there's a couple of things, and I said it all. I say it all the time. If I put a gun to your head, and I said, you have 1 second to give me an answer, who do you trust? A 7-year-old or a 45-year-old lawyer?
Fair.
Like, a gun to your head. You have a
Fair.
second.
Yeah. Lawyer.
You're going to go lawyer?
Who do I trust?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You would choose lawyer?
I would.
Okay. Think about this again.
Okay. Who do I trust?
Who's going to tell you the truth? So something happened in the house, and you weren't
Oh, no, 7-year-old.
there. You understand?
Yeah.
Something terrible happened in the house.
Yeah.
There's a 45-year-old lawyer, and there's a 7-year-old. Okay? And you want to know the truth. Who's going to tell you the truth?
7-year-old. Unequivocally.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So there's no question they approach children because of the purity of a child. There's also a lot more to, for the child perceives things in a completely different way. It's unbiased.
Very.
It doesn't know the darkness of humanity. Some of them unfortunately do, but most of them don't know the darkness of humans.
The structures haven't set in.
Yeah. So there's the way they're gonna let out that message is pure. It's coming from a pure heart, and you could tell even in the interviews with them how pure they are. They were purely scared, moved. It shifted something in them, and regardless of all that, the world. And I said this in the interview on the Y-Files, because that's what Emily said. She said, they came down from the sky, they walked up to us and told us important things, and nobody cared. And a lot of people wrote saying, no, we do care. And I said, and I would want to answer to everybody and say, no, we don't care. Because a small fraction of us care doesn't mean we care. When I say we, I mean all of us.
Humanity.
All of it, yeah. And we don't care. And the reality is, it's too expensive to care. Because if you start caring, you have to really start making some big changes.
Right.
And I don't think that we're going to do that.
I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's just the experience that you have versus mine, because like the way I'm thinking is like, we have to care,
Yeah, we have to care. Absolutely.
but we have to try to change that.
The thing is that we all do care. This is where yeah. Well, if you think about it, everybody knows what's good and bad. Fair?
Fair.
We kind of all have a pretty good idea. What's a good thing to do? What's a bad thing to do? You know, like your little dog here, the good thing to do is pet the dog. It's not right to kick the dog.
Right.
We all know that. It's like, I'm not going to start kicking the dog. It's a cute dog, right? So we know we have a certain amount of knowledge inside of us to be good to one another, to not take too much from one another. We all take a little bit from each other, but not, to drain the other. The problem is that we're also faced with a system that drives us. And if the government steals from you, you get angry that they stole from you, so you want to steal from them. Mm-hmm.
You create the monster.
You create the monster.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we have very, very loosely managed authorities where they're our authority, but nobody has authority over them. So they basically do whatever they want, and we kind of follow. And that makes us angry. And so instead of us being vindictive against them, we end up becoming vindictive against each other.
And this is actually a really good mirror to the UFO community.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Is the infighting.
The infighting
stops
is crazy.
any action from happening. Because when you're too busy fighting about whether your UFO guru is the one to get disclosure, right? You're not going anywhere, and you're right where if there is a cabal and a deep state, and I think there is, they got us right where they want them.
Oh, there's no question.
But I don't want to spend too much more time because I'm like, I want to get to the Lazar stuff so
Let's
bad.
go to Lazar.
So maybe I'll do some of this in like the Patreon
Perfect.
part of it. I gotta ask, how the fuck do you end up spending over 4.5 years working directly with Bob Lazar on S4, the Bob Lazar story? How does that happen? Because we all know the guy isn't in it for the
fame
contrary
or the
to
money.
popular
Yeah,
belief.
Yeah.
He doesn't let a lot of people in.
Absolutely not.
How did you get in?
Look, like I've said in the past, I had an idea and I thought, why not try to reach out? I essentially thought, why would Bob Lazar want to talk to me? And because I had the idea of replicating the sport model as a collector model, a miniaturized professional, by the way.
Right, because you are a merchandiser, so this was the kind of the angle.
That's where I said, okay, I want to create a flying saucer. I want to build a flying saucer. I want the world to have a real model of a flying saucer, not a Creative Liberty one, not a sci-fi flying saucer that we see in Mars Attacks or anything. An actual model that was witnessed and observed by somebody professional who's apparently worked on it. If that is a true story, that means that is a real flying saucer. Now, there's a lot of controversy around Bob Lazar. Regardless of that, the infamous flying saucer he talked about, the sport model, has become the standardized flying saucer in the world.
Absolutely.
Hands down, okay?
Yeah.
And there is no professional die-cast version of the flying saucer. You could buy die-cast aircrafts, vehicles, buses, tanks, heavy construction machinery, all in die-cast. You could buy tiny little versions all the way to pretty big-sized, all models. And there's a big market for that. And I thought, nobody's ever done a professional flying saucer. Ever. Never done. And so I thought, why don't I do this? Why don't I try and build a really good quality flying saucer that people can have in their living room or whatever, that doesn't look cheesy, that looks like a really good piece of a collector item. And I decided to choose the sport model because it became such a big deal in the world of UFOs. And I thought, I did a lot of research. I saw there was a lot of bad information online about it. So I thought, let me see if I reach out to Bob Lazar, if he would be interested in at least guiding me and giving me his stamp of approval. Now, that was a shot in the dark. I was not expecting Bob Lazar to even entertain my project. But why wouldn't I try?
Of course.
What's the point of saying, oh, I don't think he's going to answer me? I mean, I'll just reach out. I'll be very professional about it. I'm not going to. And I also.
You're not like a nobody.
No, well, as far as he was concerned, he didn't know who I was, right? So I reached out. I spoke to Zach at United Nuclear, who works with Bob Lazar. I called United Nuclear. That's the company that he has. So I called United Nuclear. I reach out. He picks up the phone. It's Zach. Zach is talking, and I say, Zach, I'm interested in basically creating this product. I told him who I was, what I've done in the past. Here's my website. Here's another website of other products I've done. I mean, I gave him a whole bunch of references of stuff I've made. I said, I'm an actual real merchandiser. I've done this for almost 25 years of my life. I'm not some, crazy person who wants to just make a cheap flying saucer. And he says, look, he goes, I can't guarantee Bob Lazar is going to call you back or is going to be interested. That was great.
I was trying to be so covert about what I just did.
That was great. That was perfect. And basically, he said, I don't know if he's going to call you back. I don't know if he's going to be interested. I'll let you know. So I get a call. I think it was a day or two after. I see United Nuclear on the phone when he calls at the office. I pick it up. It's Zach, and he says, look, I've spoken to him. He checked out some of the stuff you've done. He was impressed. He'll have a conversation with you. I said, that's great. For me, that was a huge step, right? Finally got on the phone with Bob the following day, and he was very nice. I recorded the call because I wanted to make sure that, whatever he would have said, I would have had as evidence that I could go about doing this. Whether it's no, it's no. If yes, yes. And I have him saying, if you did this, how would you do this? And I explained, I think he wanted to make sure that I wasn't some guy who just wants to get close to him and this is an idea. I said, well, first off, I started giving him materials that I would use, processes we would use, combination of materials, different type of packaging or how we would go about creating it. And he stopped me and he says, okay, stop. He goes, I understand. I think I figured out that you know how to do this. I said, yeah, I do. I know how to do this. And he says, all right, well then come and see me. And so that's how that started.
It all started with this model.
A model. And it started off completely because I just wanted his input in correcting the unbelievable amount of crap that was online that I couldn't. When I was reading all the information about the sport model, there was big, giant gaps of information missing. A lot of things that I was like, or contradictory information. I was like, which one's right? Is it this one or is it that one? Which one do I use? So finally, as soon as he said that, I said, then when do you want me there? He says, whenever you want. You didn't have to say it twice. Got on the computer. I bought a plane ticket. I'll never forget. I bought a plane ticket December 3rd, 2021, and was out at United Nuclear. Oh, sorry, not at United Nuclear. I went out to Oregon to meet Bob. Just as I was leaving, he says, when you get here, don't go to United Nuclear. Come straight to my house. I said, okay. And basically got to the hotel. Zach came and picked me up and says, we're going to Bob's house. I said, let's go. And I got there. Was nighttime already by the time I got all the way, because he's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I finally got there. It was already sunset. Got in the car, drove kind of in the desert. It's pretty far out in the middle of nowhere. And got to his house. I couldn't believe it. I walk in. There's Bob Lazar with his wife, his wonderful wife, Joy. We immediately start talking. And I had already warned, because she had asked Bob to ask me what I wanted to eat. And I said, unfortunately, I got a whole bunch of dietary restrictions, which we talked about earlier. I said, so I'm kind of a pain in the ass. So I want you guys to not complicate yourselves because of me. I said, I'll make do with whatever I find that I can eat. And she was like, no. I will make you something. So she was very, very sweet. And she asked me a million questions to make sure that she would make me something I can eat, which was cool.
What a joy.
She's a wonderful person. I really love her. And we all sat down. We were talking about everything but flying saucers. We talked about life and who I am, why I decided to do the work I do. And he talked a little bit about what they did at United Nuclear. And we didn't really talk about flying saucers. And eventually, Zach had dinner with us. eventually Zach had to leave, if I remember correctly. No, what am I saying? Zach stayed because he had to drive me back to the hotel. That was the first night Zach stayed. And we finished dinner, go in the living room. Bob sits on the stairs and looks at me, and he says, "Look, you really want to do this? Like you really want to do something like that? Like you really think people are going to want to buy a flying saucer?" I said, "Yeah." I didn't even hesitate. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Wow, you didn't even hesitate." I said, "Why would that not be an interesting product?"
Yeah.
A really cool professional quality flying saucer? Are you kidding? The amount of people that are talking about this topic is humongous. I go, of course we'll sell them. Of course I'm confident about it. I've never seen one. And by the way, as a merchandiser, I would invite anybody out there in the world to find me a high quality commercial grade flying saucer that is pulled from a real story and not Star Wars.
Right.
Okay? So it doesn't exist. And I thought, are you kidding? There's a gap in the merch world. We need a flying saucer.
Untapped potential.
And so that's what I wanted to do. So he says, all right, well, if you're willing to invest on that, because he knew it was going to cost. I said, I'm willing to put the money to do this. I just need your guidance. I offered to help him financially. If time is something I can pay for your time. He's like, no, it's fine. He goes, we'll sit down and we'll look at it. So we sat down together for 2 full days and went over everything, dude. Like, I mean, absolutely every nook and cranny in that craft and
every granular detail.
And he was so taken by my obsessive compulsive requirements of detail.
Because at this point, are you already committed to, I'm going to have to create this in Blender or create this in some sort of software?
Oh, of course I was going to do that first. If I'm going to create a model that I have to then replicate in real, I need to have a digital version of it.
Of course.
So
your mind's like, all right, I need every detail.
And what was really happening while this was happening, what happened while this was happening was, while Bob is explaining the real flying saucer, my brain is, how do I make this model so that people can take it apart? Now, there's 2 ways of making the flying saucer. The real way that it's made, or the way where a consumer can take it apart to see inside and right? So my brain is not just thinking the flying saucer. My brain is also thinking, how do I make it so that it looks 100% perfect, but yet somebody can take it apart? Because it's like when you buy a die-cast car, you want the doors to open, you want the steering wheel to, you want that. Otherwise, who cares? It's just a paperweight, right? So I want people to play around with it. And I was explaining that to Bob while I was taking notes, because he's like, why are you writing that? Because he saw me. I said, because I have to take it apart. And he's like, why? I said, wouldn't you want to take it apart? And he's like, I never thought. Yeah. He's like, you're right. I said, well, that's where my brain is.
I'd want to see the 3 chairs.
So essentially, I'm asking him more than normal questions, because I also have to know details of how to put this together so that you could take it apart.
Right.
And that was a really interesting couple of days. Went back to Montreal. I thanked him for that. At that time, we had never discussed, and he basically just offered his time to help me. I gave him a bunch of stuff. I said, this is what I saw online. And he says, no, I never said that. That's
garbage.
Like all garbage. Like there was people, the way they were describing where the honeycomb hatchway was completely wrong. The Testers Corporation didn't do it right. The Testers Corporation didn't do the emitters correctly. There's a model that was made in 1994, a plastic model. A lot of mistakes were made on that one.
Isn't that the one Rogan has at his studio?
No. The one that Rogan has is a guy called Designed by Perry, and it's a really good quality craft, and I recommend people check that guy out. But it's an artist version.
Okay.
So there's there's a difference between an artistic representation of the craft and a commercial grade
Right,
product.
right. So back to this.
Yeah.
When does it go from, because you're spending, so he's offering his time.
He offers his time. I went back to Montreal, built the craft in Blender. Initially, it wasn't Blender. Initially, what we did was we were using Photoshop and InDesign. We were basically creating a mock-up of this object and writing all the notes and writing all the, like, you have the archway superstructure, the main upper shell, lower shell, the ripples, all the parts of the craft, making images that would correlate to what we're writing. It's a tremendously detailed doc that we created. It ended up being 200 pages, okay, of the craft. And we ended up having a bunch of questions for Bob because I didn't cover everything in my first trip. And then I thought, shit, I got to talk to Bob about this. So I had 178 questions that I had in a book, questions for Bob. I said, I think it's easier if I come out there, we knock this out in a day or two. And he says, all right, well, if you want to come back, come back. And I went back. This time, Joy had to leave to go to California or something. And it made me stay home with Bob, just me and him for 2-3 days by ourselves. And the animals and the dogs and the horses and the cats and the birds. Yeah. And it's like it's an animal kingdom out there. And we really covered everything. And I'll never forget, I showed him every possible detail. And he says, I am blown away, he says, from how ultra detailed you are. And I said, well, this is the reason why this is important, is because not only are we making this correctly, but we're also correcting
the record.
Look at all the stuff that's out. He goes, yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I'm enjoying this. So after that, we started building it in Blender. Okay. After that meeting, I started building the craft in Blender in real size. As it was, my decision ended up being, I changed my direction where instead of building it so I could take it apart, I said, let me build it real size first.
Okay.
I have all the specs. It's actually going to be a faster process for me to build it 100% as you saw it. And then from there, we'll create a secondary copy of it, and then we'll start breaking it apart. And then,
yeah, of course,
scaling it down. Once I built the craft, I started thinking about, in Blender, I started seeing the image, really nice images of it. It's just a craft, though. There's nothing else. And it's interesting, but it's just a craft. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, we got to put it somewhere. And I thought it's going to be a box. I'm going to make a really cool box for this craft. And I want the box to look like the hangar that it was in, because he always said it was in a hangar. There was mercury vapor lights in there. So I thought, let's make a box that looks like the hangar. Why not? Right? It's just print. So I said, Bob, could you give me an idea of the walls and the floors?
Oh, here we go.
And so that was the first time that we went outside of the craft and started building the interior of the hangar just as a printed design inside a cardboard instead of box. And then I said, no,
of course you wouldn't.
I said, no. I go, this has got to be 3D. So let's build it in Unreal. At this point, we were going to start doing it in Unreal Engine.
For anyone who doesn't know, this is Hollywood.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine it's the premier.
Unreal, it's a premier video game
software.
And Unreal Engine, we started off with Unreal Engine 4 when we started. And we started building Bob gave me on Zoom calls, we would start taking down notes. He would send me emails he would go on Google and he would search for like workbench. He would say there was workbenches in there. So he would send me a picture, be like kind of like that, but it had a butcher block top on it. So he goes, it wasn't that. He would say, looks like that, but here's the details. the beams, or there was stuff he didn't remember at all. Like there was a lot of things that I'd asked him. He goes, "I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to those. How many
Rivets
hoses were in there, or how many?" He's like, "I don't remember." He goes, "I wasn't looking at fucking hoses." You know what I mean? So, which is normal. So we also got a hold of a consultant who used to work at Area 51 inside hangars, and got them to give me information on how they have their drain systems in the hangars at 51, how they have the air pressure systems coming in from the ceiling so that they can have air pressure pipes, hoses all the way down. I got a whole bunch of information that was only about the construction of a hangar.
So you refuse to take artistic liberty.
No artistic liberty. Even if the only artistic liberty we took is, where do I put the fire extinguisher, which was confirmed to me by somebody who worked out there, but where do I put it? This is the model. This is what the box looked like. This is how they used to identify them. But he says, I don't know where they were in that hangar. Bob goes, I don't remember where the fire extinguishers were on the wall. So that's the only thing you'll see is very mundane things like that. I had to,
fair enough.
Basically went, all right. And I used a lot of reference pictures, military hangars, military from the 60s, 70s, 80s to see, basically how to make something. The lighting was important, the kind of conduits, the air vents, we built the whole thing. And what started to happen was that the craft was almost finished. And I realized, oh my God, this is going to cost a fortune to build the hangar. The hangar became I didn't realize that I got myself in trouble, because I'm like, now it's like the point of no return when the plane is about to take off. You can't stop the engines. So it's either you thrust harder or you just crash.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, we're going to have to thrust harder. That's basically where I was. It was like a trap. And I basically said to Bob, I go, look, I think we're not going to just do the hangar. I think we should do the whole thing. And he says,
what do you mean?
What do you mean? I said, I want to build the whole thing. We're going to build the whole S4 facility, the whole thing in 3D. He's like, why? I'll never forget. I said, I don't know yet. I literally didn't know. I literally built this thing. Imagine a plane crash on its way down and it has no wings. I was building the wings while the fuselage is coming down at full speed.
This is how artists work.
I literally go, I don't know, fuck it. Let's just build S4.
Yeah.
And so we did. And so he goes, I'll help you, but are you sure you want to spend that money? Like,
this is monumental now.
This is a huge investment. Now, I knew that I had to hire more guys. For anybody listening, anybody who works in 3D, I can tell you, this is expensive stuff, okay? Anything that is built in 3D is not as expensive as building it for real, but not far from
it.
Okay, so I think a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't understand that. Yeah, well, it's just digital. You put a light on the ceiling and you just make it light. No. It's not that simple. So we had to build the assets, build the conduits, build the railings, the partition beams, the cinder block walls, the cement floors, the drain systems, the piping, the piping, the electrical piping, the plumbing piping. Everything is 100% built at S4 in our environment. Everything. Okay?
Damn.
So it's like I built a real place. I didn't just make it look like a movie set. It's a real place to go visit. It's got everything.
And that's what I really love about what you did here, is because it's almost like you took Bob's...
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You took his memory...
and then put it into this alternate reality.
Right. You brought everyone else up to speed on exactly what he was seeing. No detail too small.
Exactly.
everything needed to be perfect. But where the hell does it go from a
That-
model
so
to
that-
a movie?
So then while we were doing that, obviously the guys that were working with me on this said, maybe you could create a VR experience that people could visit S4. And that's when I told Bob, I said, Bob, check these. I would give him small glimpses of stuff. He was always getting pissed with me. He was like, show me what you're building. And I'm like, no, I just want you to feed me the information. I have to finish it. Because, I hate showing something that's not good. I don't, it kind of, it's like when you don't make the table and you have guests over, you want to set the table first. You don't want them to come in and the tablecloth is on the chair and the glasses are still on the table next to the chair. It's like, no, you want to make it look good. So I was like, no, I want it to look good for me to ask you, does it look like that? And then I'll make corrections. And the guys were like, you could possibly turn this into a VR experience. So I started sending Bob a couple of snippets and he was like, holy shit, that looks incredible. And I said, imagine we could turn this into a VR. And he was like, what do you mean? And I go, you walk through it and you could do that? Like, oh my God, that's incredible. I didn't know you could do that. And I said, but I have to spend more money. So I'm going to do that as long as you keep helping us correct. He says, I want you to make sure you're okay with it. He was always very worried. I was like, are you sure he's always like, do you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yeah. I want to do this. I'm now in this. And long story short, got to a point where it now looked like a movie set, even though it was a real place. Now we could bring a camera in there and you can actually bring any camera you have in Unreal. And then we upgraded to Unreal Engine 5 and started doing some cinematic shots in there. And to anybody listening who is working, Unreal Engine, the people that run that, they were overselling the cinematic capacity of Unreal Engine. And they were putting up all these new updates and all this stuff, which made you think that, okay, we really got to do this. So I spent a shit ton of money on Unreal Engine, on developing it in Unreal Engine. And I mean, it was either me buying a brand new Ferrari or that.
Oh my God.
Okay. And I decided to do that. And then later found out that Unreal Engine was overselling what
their
capabilities, which made me kind of really upset because I thought that's kind of bullshit because you guys are selling bullshit. They have a really good video game platform. I love that. For that, they're the kings. But they were trying to sell the cinematic
element,
and they don't have that. And so,
who would have thought a company going outside of what they can really do and selling it?
Right? So we ended up taking all of our work, which was a huge, the whole S4, the terrain, the landscape, the
every
Pappas Lake,
asset,
everything, and transfer it all onto Blender,
which is open software.
Which
is amazing.
Then that required a lot of tune-ups.
Of course.
Okay? And from that point on, because this is for the geeks who like to work with 3D and stuff. Blender kicks ass.
It does.
In cinematics. Okay? Blender is another dimension. The Blender, you can literally go into an alternate world in Blender and it's 100% looks real. And so to me, that was like a huge upgrade. And as we did that, we obviously, as you saw in our film, the renders are spectacular. They're long form renders. It's a real environment. But there's also a lot of limitations with Blender. So you have to really, it's like Blender is kind of like you buy a car that has no seats. It has like 2 boxes that you sit on. It has a steering wheel. It doesn't have a radio. It doesn't have mags. It doesn't have wipers. It doesn't have, it's pretty plain Jane. It's a car, but now you're going to need everything. And how you put all that together and how you build the architecture behind all of that so that you can create a functional, living new world is a whole different story. And that's where a lot of money went. But when that happened, I said to Bob, now we have a real world. And I have to explain to the world what this is.
So it has to be.
I said, why don't we get you to record what everything is in here? And he says, okay, but let's turn it into a documentary about S4. And I said to him, I swear this was not the plan.
Right.
And he knew that because he had seen everything we were doing to make it into a VR. The development. And so he had seen how much, because I had kind of started telling him how much money we were spending, and he was like, oh my God, you're never going to make your money back. You know, he was like worried about that. And I said, look, let's try to see if we could do this. So it took a week or so of some phone calls and some making sure, because I said, I wouldn't want just you. I want Mario. I'd love to talk to George Knapp, everybody that was there at the time. And it ended up becoming a documentary film.
Dude, it's not a documentary. And I hate to say this, but I also love to say this to another filmmaker. It is what I would highly consider to be the definitive version of the Bob Lazar S4 story. It is the definitive. If I were to recommend, if someone came up to me and said, I really want to know about this Bob Lazar guy. Well, Luigi made this movie. This is what I go to. So it's not just a documentary. You've done something here that no one has ever done. And that's why, a lot of people might say, why are we taking so much time talking about the process? Because it's beautiful how it happened. Because it was so organic. And, working with Bob and getting to know him, it's almost like I can see the vision was being built in your head. And you're starting to see S4. And you're like, I want other people to see S4. How do I show them? And it's never good enough, right? You're always like, nope, more money, let's go. It's a selfless thing. It really is.
It got to a point where we were looking at it and we were saying, okay, this is possibly the first time that we could turn a piece like this into a historical document. Here we are, researching flying saucers, UFOs, UAPs, aliens, non-aliens, interdimensional, whatever you want to call it. We're researching something, but we're not paying enough attention on exactly what it is that was seen, witnessed, touched, manipulated, whatever it is. So let's create something like that. And I knew that if I stopped and just put out what we had, that it would never reach that level. And so I knew that it was going to put me in a financial situation, because at this point I started spending a little bit more than
we're talking
I thought.
Millions of dollars, folks.
And so that caused a lot of anxiety with me, with people on my team. It created a lot of stress, because now it's like, oh my God, what if this? Yeah. And if this didn't work, it would have ended me. And that's how far we went. And as far as, there's a small group of people out there on X sometimes that likes to call me a grifter, because I decided to sell my film, right? Well, to all of you call me a grifter, it's called investment with no guarantee. That's what that's called. Okay? So anybody who's ever come out of elementary school and has $10 in their pocket and want to invest it, because probably that's what they are, they'll one day realize what investments with no guarantees are.
Yeah.
We're not grifters. We decided to invest into something and didn't know if we were going to make anything out of it or not.
Yeah, so, it's not like you forced people to buy it.
Exactly. And Bob Lazar never asked for one penny throughout the whole process.
Which I think is important because that's what we're going to get to,
Yeah.
right? Is this dichotomy that lives is what the real thing is that Bob hasn't seemed to gain much
At
from
all.
any of this, if anything. And you know, what do you think? What do you think of some of the stuff like what people talk about with his background?
Right.
Some of the
It's all
holes in
valid.
education.
I mean, everybody has very valid points out there.
Right. What do you? I mean, address that from the start. Have you been spending so much time with him, and now you're going into this documentary? I'm sure you wanted to ask, hey Bob, before I get into this, like, hey, can you explain some of this stuff to me?
Big
at
time.
least, are you satisfied
100%.
with the answers he gave you?
100%. 200%. He explained to me in in great detail the MIT part of his life. Okay.
So the missing education at MIT.
Yes. That I don't have any information on Caltech. Okay. So that is more nebulous to me. Never really dove too much into that. My questions were a lot about MIT, and I 200% am satisfied with what he answered in regards to that. What I can say is this: he's not going to be able to produce any records of him having been to MIT. If they ever do come out, good. Okay. All I can say is that he was asked to go to MIT by Los Alamos National Labs in the early 1980s.
Okay.
They were working on something that had to do with national defense. It was not Bob Lazar with a backpack going to MIT as a student. This was a mandatory thing that they had to send Bob along with a whole bunch of other people from Los Alamos National Labs to MIT to learn how to do something very specific.
Fair.
Okay? What I can also say unequivocally is that what the United States government was asking MIT scientists to do was 100% illegal. This was a Department of Defense mandate to have scientists develop something where they needed to learn something in order for them to develop it. They were being sent to MIT to learn something, and that was going to translate into a creation of something that was 100% illegal. Now, for anybody listening to this, I don't think it's that hard to believe that the United States government or any government acts legally all the time. It's not that hard to believe. It's hard to believe. It's very plausible that they don't do everything by the book.
No, yeah,
Okay?
exactly.
And so this was one of those cases.
Okay.
He had to sign certain things, obviously, with all the other people. I have an interview that I did with him at Crater Lake in Oregon where I asked him about these other people. And I have him on camera, and I will be releasing it in something really cool that is going to follow in the next few months. Bob Lazar explains very clearly why he doesn't need that information to come out, not just because it's going to harm him, but it's going to harm other people.
That have nothing to do with
That
it.
have nothing to do with it. Only so that a few people that are having difficulty swallowing the story that he went to MIT or Caltech would be satisfied with that answer. I recognize the frustration of people, and I respect their frustration, and I respect their doubts.
You're satisfied with the MIT stuff.
I am.
You really, your documentary, and of course, I'm kind of skipping a little bit, but your documentary brings forward never before seen tangible evidence.
Mm-hmm.
What is the strongest new piece of proof in the film that supports Bob's claims about S4 at Papoose Lake?
There's no question that the picture that we show in the film, there's a photograph that we show in the film that was forensically analyzed by many different people prior to us approving it and putting it in the film, that was taken by a pilot, a private pilot that flew into Area 51, the Nevada test site, was allowed access in with his Cessna plane on December 25th, 2020, in the middle of COVID. He requested access, and the NTTR, the Nevada Test and Training Range, to fly into that, and they granted him access, which was like insane. So obviously he's got a big camera on board with a Nikon camera with a giant scope on it, lens, and starts taking pictures, and I mean really beautiful pictures of Groom Lake, Area 51, all that, the whole base. And he took some of the most unbelievably clear pictures of the base I've ever seen. I mean, really good stuff. And each picture is high resolution, so you could zoom into it. And as he did that, he was allowed to fly. He flew near Papoose Lake. Then he flew by the gunnery range where they have all the bombs that have been set off over the years. There's like big craters on the ground, and then did a full turn. And by the time he was on the north end of the Papoose mountain range, looking south at Papoose Lake, he was exactly 17 miles away. He had a absolutely unobstructed, clear view of Papoose and the hillside where S4 is supposedly located. Takes his camera and snaps a multitude of images. Like, it was a beautiful, clear day, and it's like click, 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 like all of us would do, okay? And has some of the most unbelievably beautiful shots of that spot. When he did that in support of the fact that Bob Lazar's story was not real, and he wanted to prove, look, there's nothing there. So his whole reason for doing that was to show the world nothing is there, which for years, everybody was like, yeah, there's nothing there. Now, there's a guy called Scott Mitchell who contacted me 2.5 years into the project, something like that. And he reached out to me and said to me, I was in Montreal, and I'll never forget this. He said to me, I want to show you something. A lot of people reached out to me, by the way, on Instagram during the making of this film. I think I have like 10,000 people who must have written me, and I just deleted most, because I would spend half my year just on, yes, it'd be like on Tinder, yes or no, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many messages and stuff. So I basically got him to get my attention because he sent me a drawing that he did of where the hangar doors were. And because we had built it with Bob, I remember looking at his drawing on the phone. I'm like, how does he know how we built this thing? Because it was perfect. And I remember getting kind of upset, thinking, did you guys, I was asking people on, at the studio, I was like, did you guys send this to any of your friends? Did anybody take a screenshot? And everybody's like, no. Because it was like a big deal. We would never share anything ever. And I was like, are you sure? Because look at this. And then Chris Matteau looks at it and he's like, wow. He goes, that's pretty accurate. Like, that's a really good position, size, layout. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just a coincidence, but it's a pretty good one.
What a big coincidence.
So I write him back and I go, it's interesting. I go, thanks for sending this. And he goes, I really want to talk to you. I'm not a crazy person. I really did a lot of work, and I have evidence that it's actually there in a picture. So for some reason, I entertained him, and he basically, I'll never forget, from the time he had in contacted me to the time that he wrote me again, I ended up going back to Oregon. I was with Bob. He had no idea. I'm literally hanging out with Bob in the lab. And I go, hey, Bob, remember that guy I told you about? I told Bob, and Bob's like, it couldn't remember really. He's like, no, I don't remember. I said, he wants to talk, and he wants to show us exactly the picture. He wants to show me. He doesn't know I'm with you. You know, he's like, all right. You know, kind of Bob's like, because if I vet somebody, Bob is like, okay.
Okay.
So I said, look, so far,
So good.
So far, so good. You never know. So we FaceTime each other, and he's looking at me, but then I just do this, and the guy goes, like he freaking panicked, you know, because he's like, oh my God, you're with Bob, you know, and Bob starts laughing.
What a cameo.
Yeah. You know,
what a cameo.
And the guy was like, oh my God, Bob, oh my God. Like, you know, he goes, I got to show you something. It's such a perfect moment because I want to see if this is real. So we switch from phone to computer because I have a bigger screen, obviously, to do a Zoom.
Yeah.
And he shares his screen. And I'm looking at it, and it's a real picture. Obviously, I know it's a real picture. And he says, watch what I do with the levels and everything. And Bob's there. And he starts to do that, and I go, and my eyes kind of like go, there's no way. And Bob goes, is that it? Like it literally, no. So I go, did you draw lines? You know, like, did you put, he goes, no, that's in the picture. I'm like, there's no way that's in the picture. I go, there's no way that's in the... He goes, I'm telling you. He goes, this is why I wanted to talk to you. So that's how that went about. I'm going to fast forward to me going back to Montreal in the studio. I said, all right, this guy's name is Scott Mitchell. He goes around under the name Weisberger. He is legit a crazy dude, but super smart.
Right.
Like, does his due diligence, and I respect the guy's ethics and how he investigates. He's really, really good. And I'm like, he says, go download the picture yourself. Don't take it from me. Take the raw picture, send it to your people, and try to replicate it. And now the thing, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
The pictures were uploaded in 2020 on a Dropbox online that's been available to the public for 6 years. Well, at the time, it was for 4 years. And I was like, okay. In my head, I'm like, well, I'm going to go pull the real from the pilot, which is what we did. We downloaded all of them.
Yeah, not from this guy, right? No,
absolutely not from this
the
guy.
Source.
He literally said, don't take anything from me. I don't want you to think I'm giving it to you. Do it yourself. Go look for the pictures and try it yourself. So I did. I told Chris, I told Veronica, I told Vanessa, everybody that was there. I said, let's get this picture, pull it up. I want to see if we can replicate what he did with the levels and all that. And I'm looking at the picture. I couldn't do it myself. I tried to do it, but I couldn't do it myself. And Chris put it in DaVinci Resolve. In DaVinci Resolve, he was able to get it way faster than everybody else. And he I'll never forget. He goes, dude, I got it. And I'm like, are you sure? He goes, come and see. And it was there. You could see, if you look at the picture, you are looking straight at the hillside where S4 is apparently located.
And built into the side of the mountain.
Built into the side of the mountain where there's these large rectangular hangar doors that are right in the side of that hill. In the picture, it is absolutely impossible to miss. You see the geometric shapes of these big rectangles that are in the side of that hill. Those are the doors.
And there's even that one in the beginning that
so,
Bob says is larger.
So during this whole thing, Bob had always said to me, they used to call the hangar that had the sport model, they used to call the big hangar because it was slightly bigger than all the other hangars. And even the door outside, clearly, it's wider than the other hangars. He goes, I had noticed that, but it is a wider hangar. It's the first one. Well, interestingly, the first one is wider than all the 8 other ones. It is clearly in the image.
And you just brought the number up.
Yeah, 9 hangars.
9 hangars, 9 craft.
And
Bob's
they're
always said that.
absolutely line up.
We'll show the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we did a forensic analysis of. So Chris got it on DaVinci. Not too long after that, Veronica got it on Photoshop. Not too long after that, Vanessa also got it on Photoshop.
So you're independently verifying on several sources.
Then I sent it to other people I knew. So I didn't just have only my team. Because you got to understand, I spent millions of dollars making this film. I want to put this evidence into the film, but I got to really make sure I'm not seeing something that's not there. Okay? So I sent it to other people, and I said, look, here's what's in there. See if you could get this. Everybody did, including even Brian Jackson, who I've spoken to, who's been doing the research regarding Dan Burrish. He also did the research on that picture. He also confirmed that those geometric shapes are there.
Because you don't want this to be that one thread that came in from the outside that unweaves your whole story.
Extremely important,
right?
That I have other people independently utilizing the publicly available image that was up there since 2020 to discount the Bob Lazar story. Mm-hmm. It was there.
How ironic.
How ironic to discount. I did not want to have. I'm not the type of guy who likes to say, I got something that was sent to me and I'm going to put it out, and it was only sent to me and I'm going to. Because as soon as you say that, well, how the hell do I know?
I know a couple of people like that.
Okay, so it's like I wanted to make sure that this was publicly available, that anybody could get this information. Okay, we're on the same page.
We're on the same page.
Okay? So that was a big deal. Now, when the film came out, of course, the herd of elementary school children that call themselves, researchers on Twitter or on X, all say that's ridiculous. What the hell is that? They call it pareidolia. Pareidolia that they're seeing. To all of them, to every single one of them that said that, there's only 2 words coming directly from me, and I hope it resonates in their speakers in their basements. Fuck you.
My man.
Okay?
Man.
That is absolute. Whatever they are saying is complete horseshit.
My man.
Okay? We did the work unlike them. We spent the money validating it unlike them. It is 100% in the picture. So it doesn't matter that somebody doesn't believe that it's absolutely in there. That's not the point. The point is it's there. It is unquestionably right there.
It's amazing.
So that to me was a big reason why I said there is evidence in the film. If somebody doesn't think that's good evidence, then they don't understand what real investigative work is.
Agreed.
Okay? We essentially did the work. We validated it with multiple different people. We made sure that those lines were not appearing anywhere else in the image or the subsequent image or previous images taken by that pilot. We also made sure that those lines repeated in the subsequent images and the previous images, because he went click, 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 click. So the picture that we put in the film is the 0501 image. Mm-hmm. But if you look at 0500 or 0499 or 0502 and 0503, they're all there. Wow. So this is not anything that is invented. And yes, when you do forensic analysis, for anyone listening that are in a basement right now, forensic analysis teaches you have to learn how to find important details that support or details that are not there to support that it's either real or not real. This image does not prove that flying saucers were at a facility called S4. It doesn't do that, and I clearly said that in the film. The image clearly proves that in 1989, a man called Bob Lazar went public and said, at that exact location, there is a facility built in the side of the hill, and it has large rectangular doors built into the side of the hill that are camouflaged.
Meant to not be seen
By anyone, including the Russians that were flying satellites over the test site. So it doesn't prove flying saucers, but it certainly adds credibility to the fact that how did Bob Lazar, here's a question to all the basement dwellers, how does Bob Lazar know this in 1989? How? Doesn't matter who he married, doesn't matter where he went to school, it doesn't matter what he enjoyed doing in other jobs, it doesn't matter how he dresses, it doesn't matter what music he listens to, none of that shit matters. When it comes to this piece of evidence, explain to me, how did he know and nobody else knew?
Right.
Now they're going to come up with something that either he was lucky or somebody else told him that. He's saying the story from somebody else. Those are the arguments. Now they're going to accept that when they were not accepting it, and they're going to come up with something else.
Because the goalpost will always move.
They're always going to move it.
He's I don't know why he is such a polarizing figure for some reason.
They've invested themselves in not believing the story. So that investment, much so that it would be harmful to their whole persona to actually admit, there's a piece of evidence here that says contrary. So yes, in the film, there is evidence that supports the story.
My man. So you faced real, I don't even want to say that, but if everything Bob says is true, like if he is telling his truth, reverse engineering alien craft at S4, what does that mean for humanity right now, especially when all the UAP disclosure is heating up in recent years? What does that mean? What does that inform what is happening right now?
Well,
or how does that inform, I should say? Do you think we're finally starting to see some of the stuff that he was talking about come to fruition now?
We're hearing some of the stuff. We're not seeing it. So that's important to we're hearing things that are being said in the last 3 congressional hearings. People are saying exactly what Bob Lazar said first in 1989. He was the original whistleblower on all this. He was the first person to talk about intact craft. So here's a few things that are lining up with today's information. Back in 1989, Bob Lazar was the very first person ever to say that the United States government was in possession of extraterrestrial vehicles that were fully intact. He was the first person to ever say that. Nobody ever said that prior to Bob Lazar.
Interesting.
The second thing, he said the United States Navy was in charge of the program.
Not the Air Force.
Not the Air Force. And because I existed researching that time, nobody was talking about the United States Navy. Everyone was talking about the U.S. Air Force. If you think about anything that was ever discussed about UFOs and crashed flying saucers, it was always the Air Force. Always. The U.S. Navy was not mentioned. This is an important detail as well.
It is.
Bob Lazar was the first one to say the Navy. Bob Lazar was the first person to put Area 51 on the map accurately.
Bingo.
Bob Lazar also said Papoose Lake near the Papoose mountain range. No one had ever said that. Bob Lazar also said that there were Russians that were brought into the test site. Later, it was proven that while there was the peace agreement between Gorbachev and Reagan, after the peace agreement, Russians were allowed at the test site. This is not something that people were used to listening to back then, that the Russians were led in to the most secret base in the United States. But this came out after he said that.
And so it's funny that you bring up the Russians, because that was something that really stood out to me in the doc, was because I do work with a gentleman that has a heavy interest in that field, in the Soviet era stuff. So spending so much time with Bob, did he ever say more about did he know anything, like how deep the connection ran? Why did we kick them out?
The information he has that he remembers is there were various programs at S4. You know, there was Project Galileo, Project Looking Glass, Project Sidekick, and he also says there were other programs, other projects that he doesn't remember the names. The Russians had been there prior to him being at S4. Okay. Barry had alluded to the fact that the commies were there. The commies back then were the communists the Russians.
Yeah.
And that for some reason, because of them, because of the Russians, a big discovery was made at S4. Something big had happened. That created some problem where the Russians were then kicked off the base. And whatever was discovered stayed in the hands of the Americans that were there. All information regarding the Russians he was not privy to, was not even written in the Blue Docs. So he doesn't have information in regards to were they even in the blue documents that he was giving. He was allowed to read
the briefings in the beginning.
No. This was information given to him by Barry, his lab partner. So clearly, there was some visit that was made at S4 from Russians. And this is consider, if this is all true, which I do believe is true, the Russians were allowed in the most sensitive area within the Nevada test site, which is a big deal.
It's not it's a
big deal.
Huge fucking deal.
It's a big fucking deal.
Because that means that the science
Yeah.
of this stuff transcends party and politics.
100%.
It transcends everything that we think.
And on top of it, I've already said this in the past. If you remember back when there was the first press conference with Stephen Greer in 2001 or something like that.
Yeah, right before 9/11.
Yeah, there was Carl Wolf.
Carl Wolf,
yeah. Wolf?
The guy from he was
U.S. Air Force.
He's
a technician on the cameras that were orbiting the moon.
Thought he went to NASA, but it was the NSA.
The NSA.
Yeah.
So he went into an NSA building, which is a super secured building.
Yep.
Compartmentalized security.
And at that time, it was no such agency.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
No one knew the NSA existed,
That's right.
So he thought he was going to NASA.
To NASA, but it's not NASA. And when he's in there are multiple different scientists from other countries. They had their...
That's right.
Do you remember that? You remember that?
That's right.
Yeah. Scientists from other countries were at the NSA building. Now, you have to wonder if that story is real, which I definitely do believe the Carl Wolf story is real.
Another guy who just gets conveniently hit by
killed by a
car.
Truck. Yeah, while he was
on a bike.
Yeah. That means that in the United States' most secret locations, people from different nations of scientific stature, meaning scientists, are allowed in to do some cooperative work.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, this is stuff that we need to address as opposed to brushing it aside, because that supports the idea, because a lot of people say it's completely insane that the U.S. government would allow Russians at S4. No, it's not insane at all.
Not if they had something we needed.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'll say it. I'll say it. Isn't it weird that years later, Russia synthesizes element 115?
and it's called Moscovium.
Moscovium.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to put words in your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
but that I get a lot of questions that arise from that little thing. But thus proving again what Bob Lazar said in the 90s, that
Right.
there was this element, and it was element 115.
And again, to the haters who always say that, Bob Lazar knew that was going to inevitably become, we were going to inevitably discover it, and it was just a lucky thing and all that stuff. Yeah, fuck off. But so the reality is that the one that was synthesized by the Russians is a different isotope than the one that he was handling. He had a stable version of it, and it clearly was not the same one that they synthesized. I don't believe that we will ever be able to have enough of it, because even if we were to synthesize an atom of it and it becomes stable, an atom,
it's not gonna.
We're far away from where
we
and
need
it's
to
very
be.
expensive to do something like that. So I strongly think that heavy element is unfortunately out of our reach if we wanted to replicate it. I hope one day we do synthesize a stable version, and I hope that we figure out something incredible where we can get a lot of it. That would be incredibly great, because it would further advance the research into this type of, into what Bob had said,
And just the species.
If it does what it's supposed, if it does what he said,
right.
Let's assume that it's real. The fact is, though, is that it is clearly another piece of information that Bob Lazar said in 1989 that did come true, regardless of the fact that people claim that it is a lucky guess, or that he knew that
He's
it was
had
going to.
a lot of lucky guesses.
There's too
in
many
his
lucky
life.
guesses here.
God damn, that guy's.
Yeah,
he should play the lottery.
Yeah,
if
that's
he's
what I
guessing all this.
That's what I said to him. I said, "You're really good. You need to give me the numbers for the lottery, because it would probably See, he laughs about that, and he says, don't waste your time with anybody who thinks that all this was just luck.
So, some of the things I want to talk about now, before we get to the members only segment, is the briefing documents.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have misconceptions about the briefing documents.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that the briefing documents, we understand that there was probably some bullshit in there.
Oh yeah.
So that if it ever leaks, they know exactly who it leaks from.
Yeah, I believe
right?
that. Yeah.
And like planting the seed, right? For you're planting it, so you know exactly who lets the cat out of the bag. What do you make of some of the things that were in that briefing document, like the humans are
containers,
and just with what you've looked into with abductions, like is that the craziest thing to hear?
No, it's not. In fact, I don't think that it's crazy to think that, we are, that there was some type of, manipulation of our genetics and all that. It's not crazy stuff to hear, especially if you looked into it like I did for so many years. But it does sound absolutely crazy to somebody who's never talked about this or ever heard about this. So of course it sounds absolutely crazy. There's no question about that. The question now is it true?
Is it true?
Why I find that to be difficult to ascertain is if the United States government purposely was attempting to misinform Bob Lazar, or whoever else was coming in there for that matter, in briefing him with documents that had claims like 65 genetic manipulation, the human DNA was modified 65 times, that were containers. We don't know what containers of. There was information on AIDS, information on Jesus, information on other species, the Zeta Reticuli star system, and really the Bible's information. That starts to make me kind of take a step away from that and take a step back and go, wait a minute. Bob Lazar absolutely does not want to hang his hat on that stuff.
Right.
He says, that to me, that's just words on paper. He goes, they put words on paper, and that's all that is. I don't have any evidence of any of that. He goes, I didn't touch it. I didn't see it. I can't confirm any of that.
It speaks to his character.
He just doesn't want to. I begged him, could we extrapolate more of that on the film and all that stuff? He says no. He says no, but because if we do that, there's this presumption that I'm in agreement
endorsing
it. And he says, I do not, that's
Endorse
not my position. So he says,
I touched the craft.
Exactly. He says, I read that stuff. It was at S4. It was clearly in there, in those documents, but I didn't see it. He says, I touched a reactor. I touched element 115. I felt the gravity field. I went in the craft. I saw it fly. I've seen all that, but I didn't see all that human manipulation, human container stuff. So is that something to completely mess with me? Was some of that information accurate? Most of it inaccurate? Which parts? There's a million questions I have in there. Right. And, I also had the privilege to speak to Lane Keck, who's not in my film, but will be in a subsequent piece that we're going to be putting out. Lane was the hypnotist who hypnotized Bob Lazar after he came out. Bob wanted to be hypnotized, not because he didn't remember, but because he wanted to see that if he got hypnotized, would it allow him to sort through his memories with a little bit more clarity. Right. He says there was so much information in such a small period of time, and he was absorbing it all, that he goes, what if I'm not remembering something? I want to see if I can remember with this.
Yeah, garner more detail.
And so Lane Keck did a few sessions with Bob Lazar, a few regressions, and I have incredible I have interviews with Lane, and then I have really interesting interviews with Gene Huff and Bob Lazar talking about this. Really good stuff that it will come out after. And Lane Keck took notes throughout all that time and every session. And those notes were never made public. Bob himself never saw them. When I was interviewing Lane Keck, he says, I have all my original notes.
Tell me.
And he said, I'm not allowed to give them to you, but if you call Bob and ask him if it's okay, then I'll share them with you. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to call Bob and give him your phone number. I'm going to give you his phone number. You guys haven't talked, because they apparently hadn't talked in a while. So Bob was like, of course I'd love to talk to Lane. Lane Keck's a super nice guy, by the way. And I recently got to finally meet him in person in Las Vegas not long ago. Super, super nice man. Extremely good ethics, amazing guy. And Bob said you could give them all to Luigi, and he literally photocopied them and mailed them to me. I have all of them.
My Lord.
And in those notes, there's a lot more than what Bob Lazar ever said in emails. Not emails. In interviews, not emails. In interviews. And I was like, oh my God, there is like unbelievable amount of data in here. And I talked with Bob a little bit about it, and he goes, yeah, I see that. I remember, I'd never seen those notes. He goes, it is very interesting. He goes, but I don't know if that's real. You know, like how can I confirm if that's real? Well, let me tell you, there is stuff in there that really opens Pandora's gate. Like, I mean,
Really?
oh my God, stuff that I did not know. And I was like, So there's a much deeper layer to this story. If any of that stuff that was in the documents is real, which I don't know, and Bob doesn't want to hang his hat on, then this is a way more complicated thing than all of us think. It's really, really complicated. It's complex, let me tell you.
It's probably a little scary.
Oh, it's the most frightening thing ever. Because now you're dealing with, you're not just dealing with a flying saucer.
You're dealing with our creator.
Yeah, you're dealing with where we come from, how things were put into society. I'm not going to say.
And I don't want to. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. One of the things I've always thought about deeply is, could the reason that the government or the deep state, why would they want this secret for so long? Why would they do all these things, take all these risks? Like the technology, Bob has talked about this.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the technology, keep it secret. But the idea that it exists, like we all know nukes exist, right? But we can't have one.
Right.
Right? It's like, it's,
yeah.
But so my question is,
I'll tell you why.
Does the cabal or the deep state, do they think that by gatekeeping who our creators are, that, you know, they're doing us a service, that we're not ready to know that aliens had?
I really don't think it's that. This is my personal opinion. I don't think that it's like that they think that we're not ready. I don't think that that's it. I think it's really complicated. I think it's logistically a nightmare to manage. I think it's a logistical nightmare. That's what I think. I really genuinely feel like it's a logistical nightmare. If any of this is real, any of it is real, okay? That there's an actual other species that create, because now everything ties in together. If you have a craft, a vehicle, an object that is large, not created by humans, whether they're aliens or terrestrial, subterrestrial, interdimensional, everything has been put on the table. Whatever they are, it's not us. And I don't like to say non-human intelligence, by the way, because your dog is non-human intelligence, by the way.
Fair.
So I hate that term. I think it's the stupidest term that they've ever fucking came up with. A fucking dolphin is non-human intelligence. Okay, so seriously, like, stop. They need to stop using that stupid term because it's insulting to those who've been researching this for a long time. It's like, yeah, everybody has non-human intelligence in their house if they have a cat or a dog or a fish or a bird or anything. Like, come
Understood.
on. Okay? So whatever whatever this is, whatever this created those objects is alive. And if it's not alive, and if it's an AI, well, something alive created it. It didn't just manifest. A computer server didn't build itself through crystallization or through something. They had to have come from a living, sentient being.
I agree.
That means that all of it is on the table. Maybe not in the way he saw it in the Blue Docs, but the fact that there would be an object or a vehicle or some technology not created by humans, created by another species, and it's in our possession, it's in the possession of humans. I mean, whether it's government or us, it's still humans are in possession of it. everything's on the table. The whole thing is on the table. The only thing I think is not on the table, and I'll say this loudly, is when I hear J.D. Vance saying that
Angels
it's
and
angels and demons. When
Preach.
I hear these people saying it could be demonic or whatever, shut the fuck up with that shit. It's like, give me a fucking break with angels and demons. It's not angels and demons, okay? I don't care what you believe. It's like angels and demons are not what landed on the moon. Or now somebody's going to say, we didn't land on the moon. All right, well, angels and demons are not running the aircraft that flew me to Boston.
Yeah.
Okay? So stop with that. That's insane to think that.
It's putting that human lens on
Yes,
your
it's
human lens on top of it.
Anything technologically more advanced than us is the equivalent of our cell phone in the hands of a caveman.
Right.
He or she hits it, a light turns on, and they think the sun is in there or there's some magic to it. It's technology. That's it. With this angels and demon thing is so toxic to scientific development that I can't even listen to it.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree.
It's had nothing to do with that. And if they say that they think that's what it is, then what evidence, JD, do you have that it's that? Because clearly you're saying something now. But when it has to do with God, apparently we're supposed to believe that Jesus multiplied bread and fish, walked on water, raised the dead. We're supposed to believe all that. Adam and Eve had sex and they created all the humans, and that there was a snake that was like with the apple
yep.
All that stuff we're supposed to believe. That Moses parted the sea. All that stuff happened. Noah was on a big ark with every animal, and he was cleaning the shit on the ark all the time, feeding them. The food was everywhere. All that stuff is real, but not aliens. Fuck off.
Sure as hell not extraterrestrials, bro.
It's like, come on. Like, all that is so incredibly crazy that we're moving away. We're trying to get close to it, and now we're diverting everybody going, no, be scared of it.
Be scared of it. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And it's because, in my opinion, I think our ancestors, what they may have called angels and demons, were what we now call
aliens, or exactly
right.
Look at Fatima. The Fatima. I mean,
just talked about this.
Like this. The sun is dancing in the air. The sun does not dance in the air, people. But the problem is that once you've subscribed, I believe. By the way, I'm a firm believer in a God.
A God.
A God.
Not
okay. I don't believe in the stories they want me to believe. I do believe that there is a supreme something. I don't know if it's an energy, if it's intrinsic in the fabric of reality.
Fair enough.
There's something beautiful that creates life.
Look around,
okay?
Right? Yeah.
I believe that. But I also believe God and the devil, they call him they say the devil, right? It's the same thing. In my opinion, it's the same thing. I could be the nicest person in the world to my little niece, and if somebody messes with her, I promise you they will meet Satan. Yeah.
It's a very, very, I've never heard that.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's the same. Now, the reality is that we have to be smart in always maintaining some humility, also accepting the fact that these beings, whoever they are, must also have been created somehow. So there is some type of creation, but it doesn't mean that the beings, because they can do 2 + 2 = 4 faster than we do, are demons or angels.
Or their end-all, be-all.
No, they're not.
They're the line stoppers.
They're not the line stoppers.
Right. They're not. That's not the base.
No.
Something created them.
And then it never ends. So
very interesting.
Of course. I mean, that's the nature of reality.
Is it of your belief that we have any of these beings in our possession?
100%.
I know Bob says he doesn't like to. He saw in a room one time where
Well, he didn't see. Yeah.
He threw a door.
Yeah.
Could have been a dummy.
I
Probably
think it
was a
doll.
dummy.
Yeah. He saw pictures of an autopsy.
But he also
though.
saw pictures of an autopsy.
Yeah. Now he says, look, those pictures in the documents, there was a document that had autopsy pictures of this creature. It had one picture of it on a table. It was dead. It had a T-cut on its chest. The skin was peeled back. You could see one big organ. You could see some of the tendons in the neck, very skinny. He could not see past the hip section. And then he saw another picture of the organ on a metal plate. So it was black and white images. What he found interesting was there was a lot of handwritten notes on these pictures that were original notes. They were not photocopied, so you could see the ink color, he said, like blue or red pens of doctors that had made notes on those documents. He says that's clearly what he did see. He says, I don't know if the picture is real, but I could tell you I saw that. And those were U.S. Navy documents.
Navy.
Yeah, U.S. Navy.
God damn. Did Bob Lazar get out of Area 51 with a piece of Element 115?
Absolutely.
Good.
100%.
Good. He's been called everything from hero to hoaxer for 35 years. After working so closely with him over the past, 4 and some change, also with George Knapp, Gene Huff, and others, part of me,
Mm-hmm.
your grandfather,
Yeah.
big part of your life.
Huge.
You didn't get to, part of me thinks that why you did this, and maybe I'm overstepping here, but you did for Bob what you probably wanted to do for your grandfather, is show the world that
it's real.
It's real.
I actually,
and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I actually hope that somehow this is where we all have this belief in anybody who's lost anybody. I lost a lot of people in my family and friends. You always hope that they're somewhere, that you're going to go see them again one day, or that they're watching, that I wouldn't be able to be here if I didn't believe that there was something else, because I love them so much that I want them to still exist somewhere.
Of course.
And so I believe that he is somewhere, and he did see this. And maybe he helped throughout the whole time. I don't know. But to me, it's like the reality is that we are 100% creatures of something, of some creation. We end up passing away in this physical realm, and maybe the next realm is where we have maybe more power.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if my grandfather is somewhere else seeing this, then I can say I never stopped chasing it.
It's
ever.
beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Has this been a life-altering, endeavor? Do you think do you believe Bob Lazar?
100%.
100%.
100%.
Well, we're going to go into the members only section.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back.
Sure.
You are such an amazing person.
It's a pleasure, man. It's
what
great.
you've done is a service to so much. It means a lot to so many people. The score of the film,
James Gray, a big
BAFTA
shout
winning,
out to James Gray for the music. It's incredible. A huge shout out to Chris Matteau, my co-director. like master
I'd
of
love
the
to
universe.
come, meet the team. You
gotta
guys
come to Montreal.
We will.
Do your show in Montreal. Come to our studio.
Gene, we'll do a show in Montreal.
Yeah,
right?
just drive up.
The U.S. still doesn't let me travel.
All right, I'll be there.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll take the ride.
Yeah, come. Yeah.
Yeah, my last trip to Canada was truly it was. I wanted to. I think whatever I say here, I'll get canceled for it. So
Okay.
I wanted to jump out a window.
Yeah.
It was terrible, but
Yeah, if you come and see me, I'll cocoon you away from all that the craziness of Canada. Yeah.
but you are you've done something incredible here, man, and you've sunk so. I know people call you a grifter online. Try not to let that shit get to you.
Oh, I
I know
don't.
you don't,
I don't.
because I've now got to know you, and I'll say this. This guy is going to be you're going to be doing some crazy shit, and you're going to be in the headlines a lot. And this is just the start. You're in this for the right reasons. Again, calculate, what did you call it? Return with no investment,
Yeah.
right?
Investment with no return.
Investment
Yeah,
with no return.
Yeah.
I think so if
With no
anyone
guarantee.
right.
Yeah, with no guarantee.
So if anyone calls you that, it's just simply because they're jealous of what you've done and the people you've been able to surround yourself with, because you are genuine, because you do it for the right reasons, because you are meticulous, because you are this or that. You are the person that people want, the generation before us is going to want to pass the torch to. You, my friend, are what we need more of. So keep doing what you're doing. Guys, go watch S4, Bob, oh my God, I can't even get it out right now. S4, the Bob Lazar story. It's available on Amazon Prime.
On Amazon Prime Video and on wearenotalone.com.
And Project Gravatar is going to continue.
Oh, yeah. Project Gravatar has one gigantic thing on the way.
I can't wait. So we'll have to have you back for that.
Yeah.
Great. My man.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Truly. And to everyone watching, listening in the future, we wouldn't want to do this without you. It means the world to me to be sitting here, able to have the conversations that we can now. The team behind the scenes does a lot, gives me a lot of time to just be the host, where, I used to be everyone. The lighting guy, the camera guy, the battery, everything. So now I get to just be the host. And to the guys behind the keys, to the people behind the keys, thank you so much, Gene, Jess, and Alyssa, and Logan, the mascot of Total Disclosure.
Love him.
He's a great.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't want to do it without you. Guys, stay humble, stay kind, stay vigilant, and we'll see you on the next one.